Council President, I think we're live. Tom?
Tom might be frozen.
He looks like he's there, but
He's there. Tom, we're live.
Oh, I'm sorry, my volume was down. Equin,
she counted us down. We're on. Yeah.
we're on.
Yeah.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Council's Tuesday, September 28th session. We will begin with a proclamation commemorating African Heritage Month by the full Council, led by Councilmember Jawando. During this African Heritage Month, I want to take a moment to reflect on just how fortunate we are to live in a county with such diversity. As the first county in the nation to proclaim African Heritage Month during September, Montgomery County is the proud home of more than 54,000 African immigrants who represent 15% of the overall immigrant population in our community. The African community not only adds rich heritage and culture, but also drives our economic engine through various small businesses throughout our communities. While many of our small businesses and marginalized communities bore the brunt of the COVID-19 pandemic, our African business owners showed unimaginable resiliency during extremely difficult times in our county. So I'm so proud to recognize African Heritage Month, reflect on our past, and celebrate all there is to the African community in Montgomery County and the endless cultural and economic contributions brought to our county. Let me turn to Councilmember Jawando.
Thank you, Mr. President. It's a great day, and though we've been celebrating African Heritage Month, and we're the first in the nation to do it as a county in September, and now it's happening all across. I think Anne Arundel County just this year celebrated African Heritage Month in September, and some of our folks from Montgomery County participated there. This is actually the first annual council full celebration that we're having, I believe, and the county executive normally does one. So really happy that we're starting this tradition with this council. As Council President mentioned, we are an extremely diverse community, and coming on the heels of the census data, 1,050,000 plus residents, 20% are Black, which means they're of African descent, right? And if you add our Afro-Latino brothers and sisters, you get an even higher number. And that means that 200,000 plus people trace their roots back to the continent of Africa. And if you know your kind of history, we all trace our roots to the continent of Africa. So it's appropriate to be celebrating today. I think one of the things that's often I've experienced as a son of a Nigerian immigrant who came to this country, but who grew up here as an African American, I've always worked really hard and thought it was extremely important to draw that connection between the diaspora wherever they be found. And you couldn't look at the horrible images of how the African descent Haitians, and I want to thank Councilmember Navarro for leading the charge here to put a resolution together that we all signed. You could not look at that and not feel that that is a connection to the horrible history and legacy of slavery and racism in this world. And as the first African peoples to declare their freedom outside the continent of Africa and Haiti, it's important, I think, we draw those cross-cultural and cross-global connections for people of African descent. And so today we celebrate the resiliency of our businesses here in the county, our African businesses, and we'll see a great video about many of them. But there's so many ways that the African immigrant community and the community of African descent in this county contributes in immeasurable ways. So I'm really excited that we're gonna feature some great speakers and leaders here after we watch this great video produced in partnership with our PIO office highlighting some. So we can go to the video right now.
Africa is a home of hospitality.
Beautiful.
Powerful.
The coldest ground in earth.
It's, traditions, it's culture, it's morals, it's values. That's what Africa is.
Montgomery County is home to over 54,000 Africans, which makes up 15% of the overall immigrant population in the county. In parallel with the rising number of Africans residing in the county, there's a significant number of African-owned businesses highly contributing to the county's economy and that of our nation. Most of these businesses were brought to a halt during the pandemic, the hospitality, entertainment, and non-essential sectors being the hardest hit. So this African Heritage Month, we celebrate those businesses and the faces behind them, not only to recognize their heritage, but also their resiliency. For many, dancing is a hobby, but for Hassan Conte, dancing is more than that, serving as an educational tool to educate the world about Africa.
I'm an educator. That's the way I look at it. Because what I do is bringing back the history and the culture through the art to the dance floor and to the history. Because the dancing is including history. Everything we do is look like a musical theater. It tells history about our people in Africa. It's a passion and something, it's a gift.
His career as a professional dancer began at age 15 in Senegal. After spending a decade dancing in different parts of Africa, he came to the United States to pursue a career as an independent performer. He then worked with numerous organizations around the country as a musical arranger and guest choreographer before he settled in Montgomery County. Hassan left Africa with the dream of establishing his own dance company in the United States, and in 1983, he did just that. Along with his childhood friend, he founded the Kankuran West African Dance Company in Takoma Park, where he continues to serve as the artistic director, choreographer, and costume designer. At age 70, he has no plans of slowing down and has even bigger plans for the future.
I wanted to have a school with the curriculum with dance, African. They don't have it in the United States, and that's my vision.
Meet Ana Molaho, poet, comedian, singer-songwriter,
what do you expect?
and actress.
Like you're going to war.
Born and raised in Kenya, Ana started performing when she was only 7 years old.
It wasn't that somebody took me to a place and I was like fell in love with it. It was just the music I had. I created my own songs.
After receiving praise and support from her community for her performances, she joined a theater company that ended up opening doors she'd never imagined.
So I won. I was the best actress in all the universities in Kenya. And I was so excited. And they said, those who won will go to the US for 1 week for an arts workshop.
At the arts workshop, Ana realized that there would be more opportunities in the United States for her to grow as a performer, so she decided to stay. She would then learn that she would have to take a non-traditional route to succeed.
You know, there was always typecasting, oh, you have an accent, so we're going to give you this little part of an immigrant here and there. And I said, no, I have to do something that speaks to me, that will be educative, that will be entertaining, that will create an awareness of diversity, and just performing my spoken word pieces at different cafes instead of looking for auditions.
From there, Ana established her own production company and band. In the following years, her triple threat talent took off, making her one of the most sought-after African comedian, poet, and spoken word Afrobeat artist, including being the main performer during the inaugural events of former President Barack Obama, among others. Out of all the places she's performed, Ana says that performing in Montgomery County holds a special place in her heart.
In Montgomery County, I receive a lot of love. You know, I see that it's diverse. Still believe in Africa, and I'm proud to be an African.
When she received a sewing machine as a gift from her husband, Abigail Asante never once thought it would one day become her life and lead to a successful full-time business. A hobby turned into a business is how she describes it.
I started making like a pillowcase, and I realized that I loved just putting things together. It turned into a business.
A few years later, she quit her 20-year babysitting job to pursue her business full-time from her basement. And in 2016, Abigail opened her own shop in Silver Spring. Although she's called Montgomery County her home for the last 40 years, Abigail loves and embraces her Ghanaian heritage.
I mean, I love American culture, but I also appreciate my African culture. I take the good from here, and I put it together. It makes a beautiful thing.
During the pandemic, Abigail had completely closed the doors of her vibrant store.
We cater to occasions, so if you have nowhere to go, you don't make clothes. So we were hit very hard.
She said that she's grateful for the financial assistance she's received from the county to keep her business alive. And she's happy to see previous and new customers coming back. Hailing from Nigeria, Augusta Anyao always had a knack for the arts. She moved to the United States in 1983 to pursue a bachelor's degree in business administration at Texas College. Her love for the arts never left her, so after graduation, Augusta participated in different competitions and training related to event decor, to which she credits the culture that raised her.
I came from a very rich African culture, and our culture is such that, encourages us to be whom we are created to be. And that's the heritage that built me up and gave me the strength.
A few years later, in 2007, with the push of a friend, she made the move to Montgomery County. The same year, she decided to put the event decor training she took to use and launch her event and decor company, Touch of Elegance.
I've always shoot for perfection, for elegance, and that's how the name came.
Because gatherings were not allowed during the pandemic, Augusta's event contracts were either canceled or moved to the following year, forcing her business to completely close its doors for 15 months. Augusta is happy to be back at her happy place, creating her clients' dream events. Hawaida Hasneen has always been one to think and plan ahead. Born and raised in Montgomery County to Egyptian parents who settled in Olney, Maryland in 1974, she grew up with the Northern African culture ingrained in her. Where she comes from, traditionally, the women are expected to stay home to care for their children while the men work. That's why when it came time to go to college, she created her own program and pursued a bachelor's degree in international daycare management and a minor in early childhood education at the University of Maryland, with the idea that she would one day be able to open and run a childcare center while raising her kids there.
I wanted to find a way to get these women out of their homes, but still be in an environment where they could bring their children.
While operating the childcare center, Hawaida saw a need.
I couldn't find teachers that were qualified, but I found a lot of good-hearted people. They just needed to be trained. And so I opened H&H Childcare Training so that I could reach out to those people and get them trained and qualified and get them working in the childcare centers. The best part about working in Montgomery County is the opportunities that I'm able to incorporate my culture, my traditions into my livelihoods.
Hawaida hopes to reach and help more women feel empowered and financially independent while maintaining the root of their cultures. It all started on the streets of Togo. Little did Abiginan Amuzu know that the sport he played for fun with his friends would turn into a successful career and even help shape thousands of young people one day.
It teach me a life skills. Let me be who I am today, know what is good, what is the bad. I was so serious about it.
That dedication took him places. He joined the Togo national team and represented his country in the 1986 World Cup before moving to France in 1989 to play professionally there. After nearly 20 years playing soccer professionally, Abiginan, now commonly known as Coach Fofo, thought of giving back and introducing the youth to a sport that had changed his life. In 2000, he moved to Montgomery County after a friend invited him to manage a youth soccer training program. He then realized that those who couldn't afford to pay for training were left behind, and he found a way to reach them.
We go to the park and I get them kids together. Hey, you want to play soccer? And then parents start seeing me say, oh, this guy is a great coach, and then they start bringing me more kids. That's where everything started.
That effort led to the birth of the Elite Soccer Youth Development Academy, a community program that was created to offer the youth an outlet through recreational and competitive soccer programs.
Let's go, move the ball, come on!
During the pandemic, when he could no longer train his students in person, Coach Fofo took his coaching to Zoom and had his young players convert their living rooms into a soccer field. And for those who didn't have a soccer ball,
I went to their house, put my mask and drop ball for each house. The pandemic touched everybody.
but he wasn't going to let it take soccer away from them. Coach Fofo hopes to keep impacting more young lives with the beautiful sport of soccer. Omar Kwate never thought his grilling skills would lead him to being a restaurant owner one day. The passion for cooking and entrepreneurship was ingrained in him and his younger sister Aja from an early age as they watched their mother build a successful catering business from the ground up after moving to the United States from Senegal in 2002. She then went on to open an African food store in Langley Park, where Omar's grilling skills found a place to flourish.
I would just step outside lunchtime to make some food for the workers and myself. I mean, of course, for us to have lunch, and people was trying to buy it.
With several customers often approaching him about buying what he was cooking, the entrepreneurial spirit he grew up with kicked in, and with the help of his sister Aja, they introduced Senegalese food to the community at local festivals and other events where they received positive feedback.
It's a great combination to be, and fortunate to be able to work, along my sister and my family, and it's a blessing.
The duo had always wanted to open a restaurant in Montgomery County, as it was where they grew up and considered to be their second home after Senegal. Last September, during the pandemic, they opened a second location in downtown Silver Spring.
It was tough. It's a challenge, just like opening any business. I mean, especially in the pandemic, which was a little harder than usual. Because we were already known in the area, people were excited that we opened, and we were excited. Opening in Silver Spring, a restaurant in Silver Spring, was always our dream, like all of us. So when the opportunity presented itself, we literally just jumped on it.
Thanks to takeout orders from their loyal customers and financial assistance program from their county, they were able to survive the pandemic. Omar and Aja have plans to keep growing and introducing their Senegalese menu to an even larger crowd. Councilmember Will Juando and his council colleagues have put forth legislative measures and provided financial assistance to support local small businesses, which Councilmember Juando says are the backbone of our local economy.
We have the largest African immigrant population in the country here in the D.C., Maryland, and Virginia area, and a large concentration of those are in Montgomery County. So they really are a vital part of our economy, and we know coming out of the pandemic, we're hit particularly hard.
To help them bounce back, Councilmember Juando has been visiting and highlighting different African and other businesses every week in his Our Community, Our Businesses series.
It just underscores that we have such a diverse tapestry here, and certainly the African immigrant community is just as a big part of that as any other community.
Montgomery County is the first in the nation to proclaim the month of September as African Heritage Month. And for Councilmember Juando,
Mr. William Opeyemi Juando.
This has a very special meaning, as he is the first African member to serve on the council, coming from a Nigerian background, which he proudly showed at his inauguration.
We were the first in the country and have started a trend of this all around the nation, where cities and municipalities are celebrating African Heritage Month in September. And so to be the first, it's just really a testament to how great Montgomery County is. We value the great tapestry here, we value our diversity, and the contributions that so many communities make to making us a great place.
As the famous African proverb goes, the best preparation for tomorrow is to make sure today's work is superbly done. By emphasizing this very point, we recognize the all-rounded effort many visionary Africans exert by making a difference in their respective trades and supporting their families and communities. Happy African Heritage Month.
Yeah, that was awesome.
That was great, and I think now is the time to turn to council members, Council President, if anyone wants to make comments. So I'll defer to you on that.
Yeah, thank you. That was terrific. Yeah, a couple folks have already texted me. Thank you so much, Councilmember Jawando and all the participants. That's a fantastic video. Council Vice President Albornoz.
That was a beautiful tribute and video. Thank you, Councilmember Jawando. Thank you to our PIO team. And I am starving right now and feeling like playing soccer. So I want to give a special shout out to the Akuaje family in Montgomery Village. Growing up, Kweku, Nana, Na, and my best friend Kwab and Mr. and Mrs. Akuaje were like an extended family. And I spent many, many, many afternoons and evenings in their living room and in their basement, smelling the absolutely delicious jollof rice, the tilapia, the banku, and so much incredible food. And being in their home always felt so familiar to me because as the son of immigrants myself, the focus on family, the focus on being together, to being united, so proud of our culture and heritage and doing everything we can to keep it alive among generations felt so right. And so high on my bucket list is the opportunity to visit Accra and Ghana one day to see the extended Akuaje family. And I look forward to doing that and can't thank our African community enough for all of the contributions they make culturally and also economically and in every corner of our society. So this is a wonderful month, a wonderful tribute, and I look forward to just another exciting time to celebrate just this rich heritage and culture. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Councilmember Navarro.
Thank you, Mr. President. Councilmember Jawando, thank you so much for leading this extraordinary celebration. That video, I think, really encapsulated this extraordinary tapestry that we have here in Montgomery County. You know, when we talk about diversity time and time again, I always say that we use it, we throw that term around, but it is so important to frame this through the lens of abundance. That's what I see. I see that Montgomery County is home to an extraordinary immigrant community that is really motivated by this notion of prosperity and abundance for everybody. And as we talk about, you know, the continent of Africa, oftentimes I have to remind some folks, as I remember, it's not a country, it's a continent with this extraordinary history, with amazing diversity within not just the continent, but each country. And we are so fortunate to have such a vibrant continental African community. And, you know, as it was mentioned, that culture, those traditions, the food, the music, it all flows right through so many different parts of the world, including where I was born in Venezuela, being a Caribbean country. And of course, my husband, who was born in Haiti, you know, you see that these traditions, that this culture continues to be alive and well in the Caribbean and in so many other parts of the world. And so how lucky can we be to be able to partake in this resilient and entrepreneurial spirit? You know, I had a really awesome conversation with Chef of Wono of Hakuna Matata in Wheaton, talking about how was it going through the thick of the pandemic, and a lot of the themes were the same. You know, it is about resiliency, and it's so exciting. The last thing I will share is that it's so interesting to hear some of these professors and experts who are futurists, who study demographic changes and things like that around the globe. And what is inevitable when you look at the data is this notion and this concept that the future is in Africa. The growth in terms of innovation, entrepreneurship, birth rate, et cetera, it's in Africa. And so when you're looking out into 2030, 2050, that is where it's going to be happening, as they say. So again, we are so extraordinarily fortunate here that we are able to integrate all of this amazing resiliency, historic, valuable contributions of this community into making Montgomery County so vibrant and so amazing. So happy African Heritage Month. And boy, looking at, you know, all of this pieces of the video, I'm like, I like to go take some dance classes,
then I'll have to go sample all the food, and all of these other things that are happening are just really awesome. So congratulations, everyone, and thank you for everything you do to make Montgomery County such an amazing place.
Thank you so much. Councilmember Reamer.
Thank you. Thank you to everyone for joining us. And Councilmember Jawando, thank you for ensuring that this county and the council would commemorate our community and our African community, because it's really important. I remember when you came out for our inauguration in your family's attire, and it was electric. I know for everyone there, but I'm sure much more so for everyone who was watching you as a proud son of their heritage. And so it's really nice that you have, continued to elevate our community in so many different ways. And I just want to thank all of the community leaders and entrepreneurs and, just everyone from our thriving, exciting African immigrant community. You are such an important part of what makes Montgomery County special and different and, amazing. And we're just really, we're celebrating you because we are just grateful for what you bring and how you make us better. And so thank you so much. And we'll see you, we'll see you outside the council office building soon. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Rice.
Thank you very much, Mr. President, and thank you, Councilmember Jawando. Thank you to the community leaders. I just want to take this moment to remind everyone that we do have a great sister city relationship with Gondar, Ethiopia. I was fortunate enough to travel to Gondar at the beginning of January of 2019 and really saw that entrepreneurial spirit that's there in our homeland that also is represented here in the United States of America. And it's one in which we cannot forget. And so for those who continue to talk about going back home, it is incredibly important because we want to continue to build those bridges of opportunity and connectivity between the motherland, Africa, and here in the United States is incredibly important as the descendants of Africans who were enslaved and came here to this country, that we continue that connectivity and we don't lose sight of where we came from and understand how important that is for us, just as many other immigrants who voluntarily immigrate to the United States have that connectivity with their homeland as well. And so I want to encourage us to continue to support our sister city relationship. I know there have been conversations with many community leaders about expanding that to other countries in Africa. And so certainly from that perspective, I look forward to, during my short time here on the council, continuing to help foster that, but want to make sure that we continue to do that and continue to lift up our great businesses, our great culture, everything that we benefit from by continuing to have that connectivity with our African immigrant population. So thank you to everyone and look forward to that continued partnership and continued work in the future.
Thank you. Councilmember Katz.
Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you, Councilmember Jawando, for bringing all of this to us today. And I certainly associate myself with everything that has been said. I try not to repeat it, but sometimes I do. I just wanted to thank everyone who's here today and thank everyone for being such an important part of what we all do every day, and that's enjoy each other. And I think there was a theme. Everyone has mentioned the food, and I certainly want to mention that as well. And one of the real dilemmas of having events like this on Zoom is you don't get the meal, you don't get the food, but we will be back and we will be able to do that. This morning is just another example of what you do for us each and every day. Today, you've educated us. You've certainly entertained us, and of course we saw the food and you made us hungry. So, but thank you so very, very much. We appreciate each and every one of you for everything that you've done, and thank you for being such a major part of our community. Thank you very much, Mr. President. I turn it back to you.
Thank you, Councilmember Glass.
Thank you very much, Mr. President, and I'm so happy that we're celebrating African Heritage Month here. And Councilmember Jawando, thank you for continuing your family traditions, bringing them and celebrating them here in the county, celebrating them with all of us here on the council. And over the last number of decades, the DC region has been among one of the top destinations for individuals leaving the continent and wanting to start a new life in the United States. And I think it's a true testament to our community here in Montgomery County and across Maryland that so many have chosen to live here and restart their lives here. It's a testament to the resiliency and the entrepreneurial spirit that everybody has. Of course, I personally appreciate everybody sharing their culture and their cuisine with us. And, the bottom line, frankly, is that we are committed to making sure that everybody feels welcome and safe here in Montgomery County. And all of you who are joining us today play a vital role in making that happen. So thank you all for being here today. Thank you for making our community a welcoming one for all. And I look forward to celebrating the rest of African Heritage Month. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilmember Friedson.
Thank you so much. Appreciate Councilmember Jawando, your leadership of this really wonderful celebration of our community. This isn't just a celebration of the African diaspora. This is a celebration of Montgomery County, who we are, what we are, who and what we value. And certainly the African community is such an important part of who we are, a group that numbers large at 54,000, but far outweighs in culture, in influence, and entrepreneurial impact, far outweighs the numbers even still. I am personally so proud that the DC region, that Montgomery County specifically, is a magnet for such a vibrant community. Certainly your presence in our community as it grows continues to add to the vibrancy, to the dynamism of what makes Montgomery County the place it is. I think a lot about the proverb, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. And in so many ways, that is a mantra that Montgomery County has embraced, that we borrowed in so many ways from the continent of Africa. And in so many ways, that was how we handled this past 19 months during this pandemic. And certainly this community was an integral part of the county's response to make sure that we weren't leaving anybody behind, to make sure that we were talking to residents in their communities, at their homes, in their native tongues, to make sure that we were testing, we were vaccinating, and we were keeping everybody healthy. And certainly we are healthier, we are safer, we are stronger now because of your role in our response. And I look forward to not just surviving pandemics together, but to celebrating many more happy occasions and to continue to benefit from the culture and everything that you bring to Montgomery County. Thank you so much, and just honored to be able to participate today.
Thank you, council members, for all those reflections. Now, Councilmember Jawando, right, we want to read the proclamation. So I will kick us off. This is a proclamation, everyone, of the Montgomery County Council. Whereas September is African Heritage Month, which recognizes and embraces all people of African descent and celebrates our diverse culture and heritage. And
whereas Montgomery County is the first county in the nation to proclaim the month of September as African Heritage Month. And
Councilmember Friedson. I can read it if you need.
Sorry, Mike, I froze there. And whereas with 54 countries, all with different languages, greetings, dances, and gastronomic delights, the African culture and identity is vast and diverse and is rich in history, values, and tradition. And
Montgomery County is home to more than 54,000 Africans who represent 15% of the overall immigrant population in our community. And
whereas we are grateful to the African community that not only contributes to our county culturally, but also economically through its various businesses. And
Whereas the Montgomery County Council's inaugural African Heritage Month commemoration theme is the resiliency of African businesses during the pandemic, and
whereas this year's commemoration highlights African business owners from different sectors, explains how they navigated their way through the COVID-19 pandemic, and showcases opportunities for future growth, and
whereas during this African Heritage Month, we not only celebrate the heritage of these business owners, but we also recognize the resiliency that they showed during this difficult time. And
whereas we recognize the rich mosaic that is celebrated during African Heritage Month as a way of preserving the past, linking to the present, and educating future generations.
Now, therefore, be it resolved that the County Council of Montgomery County, Maryland hereby proclaims September as African Heritage Month, and be it further resolved that all residents are encouraged to recognize the outstanding contributions of our African residents who have greatly enriched our community. Signed on this day, the 28th of September, by myself and the council president and the entire council. So congratulations to everybody. We're going to hear just briefly, 1 minute or less, because appreciate the indulgence. This is an important day and a historic day for us, from some of our great leaders who are here, have joined us. And our first speaker, our first 1 minute speaker, I'll emphasize that again, is Anika Ghali, who's the co-chair of the African Affairs Advisory Group of Montgomery County, another great entity that is charged to bring and uplift the voice of the African immigrant community here in Montgomery County. So Anika.
Thank you, Councilmember Wijawondo, and thank you all. My name is Anika Ghali. I'm from Côte d'Ivoire and co-chair for the African Affairs Advisory Group. I am happy to be here celebrating our great businesses during this African Heritage Month. I will a little bit tweak the order. Grace, my vice co-chair, will go first, then I will go. Thank you. Sorry.
Okay, that was 30 seconds, but you got it. Go ahead, Grace.
Hello, my name is Grace Karambiri, and I am the Vice Chair for the African Affairs Advisory Group, and I am from Burkina Faso. So thank you so much for the opportunity. AAAG aims to ensure that the county executive is well informed and able to act effectively to the concerns of the Africans living in Montgomery County. In doing so, we have to reach out to African communities in Montgomery County to understand their needs. We celebrated the 13th Proclamation on September 2nd, 2021. The theme was diverse, resilient, and thriving. And we had the opportunity to meet some wonderful small businesses in the African community and to share about their experiences for the past year.
Wonderful.
Yes. So I'll come back, sorry. Yeah. So this year, the common theme for African is resilience. Resilience we are indeed. But should we celebrate this resilience or stretch it to its limit? The same businesses that we are celebrating today are concerned, and for good reasons, about the Silver Spring Business Improvement District. Throughout the U.S., during the years of urban renewal in city after city, businesses districts that were owned by people of color were interrupted and the community destroyed and displaced. And if we trace back why, the root cause would be from systemic racism found within the policy-making structures of the cities, which rendered mute the needs and concerns of these thriving local, largely Black-owned small businesses. The County Council stands to repeat this action this afternoon by overriding the county executive veto of the bid legislation. Moreover, the racial equity and social justice impact statement prepared by the County Council itself has stated that the bill will have a negative impact on racial equity. We all want the improvement and betterment of downtown Silver Spring, but not at the expense of minority communities. The consequences of a bid, its board structure and future action will change the urban district rich and diverse tapestry largely built and sustained by African immigrant business owners. As we celebrate the resilience of African businesses this morning, let us also remember this afternoon the impact the bid will have on the survival of these businesses. Montgomery County prides itself on diversity and equity. As you vote today, please take the valid concerns of the community into consideration. And we look forward to working with you soon. An invitation to attend our monthly meetings and directly speak with our community stands for all of you here today. We hope to see you then. And thank you again for your invitation to join you all this morning. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And our last speaker, until we just say a quick hi to our business leaders, is Bishop Darlingston Johnson, the chairman of the African Immigrant Caucus. Bishop, thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Councilman Rwando. I sit here and I reflect on where we were in 2004, 2005, when we met as a church of primarily African immigrants, met with the county council seeking to get permission to build, and how we felt then that it was as though we were not in the room. Nobody knew we were here. Nobody cared. But what a difference today feels like as I hear you declare this month African Heritage Month. So I want to congratulate the members of the County Council. In particular, I want to acknowledge the work that you, Councilman Jawando, are doing, so that today the great contribution that African immigrants are making to Montgomery County, to Maryland, and to this nation are being recognized. Thank you so very much. God bless you.
Thank you, Bishop. Really appreciate that. I want to acknowledge Harriet Changari, who's the County Executive's African Affairs Advisory Liaison. Good to see you, Harriet. Thank you for being here. And Ms. Ghali, Ms. Kamberi, and Bishop Johnson, thank you all for your comments. All right, and last but not least, all of our great business owners, the stars of the show here. And disclosure, Coach Fofo, Ava will be at practice at 5:30 today. She'll see you this afternoon. And then I think, I don't know if we have Abigail with us, but Abigail, I saw Nancy nodding that her shop was in Colesville Shopping Center, if you recognize the awning there. And Michelle has had several of her outfits, so she's one of our secret weapons. So we got to try her out. But we'll hear just briefly from any remarks or thank yous that Ms. Hassani wants to say, and then we'll just go down the list very briefly. Ms. Hassani, good to see you. Are you on mute?
I think you can hear me now, right? I just want to say thank you to the council members, and I'm actually a second generation. The true founder of our businesses is my mom, Mimi Hassanin, who has been known in the council for her famous baklava many, many times over. But I do want to thank you for all the efforts and work that you've done. And, I'm so happy that we'll be able to pass this on to our children as well. Thank you.
Thank you. We all love Mimi and her. Anna? Is Anna with us? Maybe she's not with us. Okay. So Coach Fofo, you're up.
It is a day. I just want to say thanks for all the council members for this proclamation. It's not a day me personally I have to miss. I'm at work right now, but I put myself to be living this, with you guys. We love Montgomery County, and we also love the way we are accepted to be called Montgomery County home. And barely, we also make sure we put our knowledge to the next generation, and ensure they are safe. And I learn every day what we call the diversity. What can we do in the community? Make sure our kids, the next generation should be safe and improve living in Montgomery County. So thank you for all the access we've been providing to us to merge our community. So we hope continue work with all the council members and make sure the word diversity should be more including and go forward. Thank you.
And Aja, I see you here on behalf of the Coty Grill. Good to see you.
Good to see you too. I just want to say thank you so much to all the council members for having us. I choked up watching the video because it's like watching my childhood, growing up going to Baba Hassan's Kankuran, or even Anna coming to Blair. I went to Blair High School. Anna coming to Blair to do these performances. They made it that it was okay to be African. It was fun. It's amazing. Africa is beautiful. So I'm a crybaby. So it just shows having them as leaders 10 years ago, that me seeing them doing this in the community in Montgomery County, that it was possible for me and my brother to own a restaurant. So I just want to say thank you to them, thank you to everybody, and yeah, Africa, we're amazing and we're beautiful and we can make it happen. Thank you for having us.
Amen. Awesome. I think our next retreat, we're going to have some food from you guys from your Silver Spring location. I think
yes.
Make that motion.
Sure.
And Augusta, I see you're here. Touch of Elegance. Good to see you. Do you want to say something briefly?
Thank you very much, council members, Montgomery County, for incorporating us and making us feel welcomed in the community. I know that we come from a very rich culture, and I know that as you give us this opportunity to live it out, to include us in the community, I know that a lot of people will be blessed with what we come with and what we have. So I just want to say thank you very much for all you do for us.
Thank you. And last but not least, I see Anna, the actor, is here.
Yeah, thank you, council member, and everybody who's here. I really appreciate that you are highlighting all of us, the people from Africa or the diaspora, and the work that we do. But I just want to shout out to Montgomery County. You've always supported us African artists, and from the festivals to inviting us to your schools, and the library, working with the library, and everything that we do it because we love Africa, we love our people, we love our culture, and we see that you all are embracing us. So I just want to say thank you. And of course, since COVID is now, we can be out a little bit. Feel free to invite us to do more shows, more bands, more comedy, more acting. We are available. Thank you.
Amen. Thank you. Well, there you have it, Mr. President, from Senegal to Kenya to Egypt to Nigeria. We've made our rounds, and my heart is full. And Aja, don't worry, Sydney and I cry often. Sometimes we get a couple of others to do it as well. This is a great day, and happy African Heritage Month. And thank you to my colleagues for the indulgence. Back to you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilmember Juando, for your leadership on this. Thanks to each of you who participated, and all our residents of African heritage for your essential contributions to our county, particularly all our small business owners who we look forward to working with in continued partnership to protect them during this recession and continue their vitality. We hope to see all of you again soon over some of those gastronomic delights that were promised in the proclamation. Maybe Aja can help us out. Thank you so much for that presentation, and stay in close touch with us. Have a great day. Next, we will have a proclamation recognizing Constitution Month. So I will turn it over to Council Members Rice and Katz for that.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. President. And, it's a very interesting segue, because when we talk about our immigrant community and we talk about some of the challenges that folks face in their home countries across the world, the reality is that some of those rights that we are afforded here in the United States of America are not afforded to many others who live across the world in other countries where they don't have a document that is as strong in protecting rights as our U.S. Constitution. And right now, unfortunately, we see ourselves in incredibly divisive times, a time in which we have both sides of government seemingly oftentimes at each other's throats. We have a government shutdown that is upon us, each saying that they're not working with the other. Our network news stations are always giving stories about how we should distrust government and, government is dysfunctional. Confidence in government is really at a low. And there seems to be nothing but bad news about the United States of America. But the reality is that there are a lot of great things that represent us and our country. And when we look at people who are risking their lives to come here from other countries, those that are fleeing violence and insurgency in other countries that want to come here to the United States, there's a lot that we need to celebrate about the rights that are afforded to Americans and why people want to be a part of this great nation. This federal holiday commemorates the signing of the U.S. Constitution on September 17th back in 1787. As we all learned in high school civics class, the Constitution defines our structures of federal government. It is truly the most remarkable political charter in history. And this might not mean much to the average American when they're mired in the modern negativity that we have. But we have to just pause for a moment and say, it's really important for us to still celebrate Constitution Day. And it is because it's a historic document that, when coupled with the Bill of Rights, means that we, the people, all of us, can actually have a government that really serves everyone and also protects our vital rights. And so a lot has changed since 1787. There's no question about that. The Constitution, as originally written, left a lot of people out, left a lot of people's rights out. The long fight for equity and social justice for our African American community, for women and other groups, certainly continues to this day. But one thing hasn't changed. And the great thing about us is that we know that we have to have a government that will continue to protect the individual rights and freedoms for everyone without abusing its powers. That is the story of America. That is the story of the U.S. Constitution, and the reason why we continue to celebrate and lift it up to this very day. And so with that, I turn it over to Councilmember Katz to give us some very interesting perspectives and always gives us some enlightening things about what the Constitution is, what sometimes it isn't, and some of those unique things that you may not know about our U.S. Constitution. Councilmember Katz.
Thank you, Councilmember Rice. It's always a pleasure to present this proclamation with you and with all my colleagues. The United States Constitution is one of the most instrumental documents in the world, serving as a guide for the constitutions for over 100 countries. It's also the oldest and the shortest written constitution of any major government in the world. So you can do a lot of things with a short speech. I just think that should be noted. I will share some fun facts about the Constitution. When the Constitution was signed, the United States population was 4 million. It is now more than 327 million. Philadelphia was the nation's largest city with 40,000 inhabitants. Both Gaithersburg and Rockville, and I guess many other places in Montgomery County, are larger than 40,000 people. George Washington and James Madison were the only presidents who signed the Constitution. As Thomas Jefferson was serving as the U.S. Minister to France, similarly, John Adams was serving as U.S. Minister to Great Britain and was not present to sign the Constitution either. At the conclusion of the Constitutional Convention, Benjamin Franklin observed the symbol of a half sun on George Washington's chair and remarked, "I have the happiness to know that it is a rising and not a setting sun." We are very pleased this morning to have Karma Beal join us. I welcome her to please say a few words. Ms. Beal.
Thank you very much, Councilmember Katz, and also to Councilmember Rice. The Constitution is probably one of the most important documents that the United States has, and great care should be taken to preserve it and to abide by it. And there are times when it does have to be amended, and that is provided for in the Constitution and the Bill of Rights. The Constitution would never have been adopted had it not been for the promise of the Bill of Rights. And the Bill of Rights is the first 10 amendments to the Constitution. And following along in Councilmember Katz's fun facts, there are a few amendments that never made it out of Congress. And they were never passed, never adopted. And the first of those was an attempt to abolish the United States Senate. And that, of course, would never be passed by the Senate. The Executive Council of 3 to replace the office of President. This was proposed in 1878. In 1916, all acts of war should be put to a national vote, and anyone voting yes had to register as a volunteer for service in the United States Army. That didn't make it out of Congress either. But I think my favorite one that never made it out is American citizens should have the alienable right to an environment free of pollution. And that is becoming very critical at this time. And whether it's ever an amendment to the Constitution, I think that Congress is going to have to do something about the pollution problem. And it's something that all Americans are going to have to take part in. Otherwise, the Constitution is not going to mean much because we won't be around to enjoy it. So the Constitution is very important, and we should pay attention to it and see how we can use the Constitution to make the United States and the world a better place for us and for everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Rice, I believe we're going to read a proclamation.
We are, but I just wanted to say thank you so much to Karma Beal, who continues to lift up this document, and just wanted to just play on words as we do with the Constitution for a bit, because her first name is Karma. And, you know, the definition of karma is a characteristic, emanation, or a spirit that infuses or vitalizes someone or something. And Karma, you certainly infuse a positive aspect and vitalize the Constitution each and every time in your role as a member of the Daughters of the American Revolution. So I just want to say thank you to you for continuing to really support this document and to educate folks about how this document should be working for all Americans and for a betterment and continued improvement of the United States of America. So thank you very much, Karma. So with that, Councilmember Katz, we will go ahead and hop into the proclamation. And I'm not sure who's supposed to start first.
Well, according to my notes, you were to begin and read the first two whereases.
Excellent. All right. Whereas the Constitution of the United States embodies the ideas and principles of our founding fathers, supplemented by the wisdom that has reflected in our dynamic republic over 2 centuries. And whereas September 28th, 2021 marks the 234th anniversary of the framing of the Constitution by the 1787 Constitutional Convention, and
whereas the Constitution not only embodies the hopes and aspirations of Americans for liberty and representative government, but also continues to inspire people seeking freedom the world over. And whereas Constitution Week celebrated September 17th, through to September 23rd each year commemorates the formation and signing of the United States Constitution on September 17th, 1787. And it is proclaimed and it is signed by Council President Hucker, Councilmember Rice, and myself. Thank you very, very much. And thank you, Ms. Beal, for all that you, as Councilmember Rice said, thank you for all that you do for us each and every day as well. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
And I turn it back over to you, Council President.
Thanks to both of you and to Ms. Beal. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Mr. President, if I could just 2 seconds, I meant to thank Pam Luckett on my staff for all her work on this, as well as Merkai in the PIO's office, who was our great narrator of that video, for all the work she did on the proclamation. I just wanted to say that publicly. Thank you.
Thanks to both of you. Okay, before we move to general business, I know we're behind, but I want to make a special announcement and congratulate all my colleagues. I'm proud to let each of you and our staff know that the Montgomery County branch of the NAACP surprised us on Sunday by choosing the entire Montgomery County Council as the winner of their 2021 Community Service Award. The award recognizes the council, and I'll display it for you here, recognizes the council for, quote, its outstanding performance on unparalleled leadership on the NAACP priorities. Specifically, the program book says the 9 members of the council are receiving the award for the scope and, quote, the scope and far-reaching legislation and policy it has enacted, its collaboration with the county executive and his staff, the professionalism and brilliance of their direct staff and agency heads, and its influence in Annapolis. This has, of course, been a team effort. The program book points out that the groundswell of our reform, quote, began with an overture by President Linda Plummer to then Council President Reamer following the shooting of Robert White. We all know that so many of the reforms for 3 years now have followed the passage of the racial equity and social justice policy led by Councilmember Navarro when she was council president. When I accepted the award on behalf of all of you, I also mentioned the Police Accountability Commission, the use of force bill, the mobile crisis units, our many budget investments to address our mental health crisis, the opportunity gap in our schools, and our health disparities. The program book lauded the council for our focus on accountability and, quote, racial equity, social justice, and police reform, and said that every individual council member had acted to make a systemic difference in the lives of its citizenry. And they continue that when we, the NAACP, looked at models in other jurisdictions addressing reform along with community interaction, comparisons are virtually absent. Most significant has been the council's focus on racial equity, social justice, and police reform with advisory commissions, boards, and committees created to cement the public's partnership and implement these policies. So in her presentation, President Linda Plummer said this county council was the most active and responsive that she had seen in 20 years. So it's obviously wonderful to hear of their confidence in our work, and all of us are very grateful for our partnership with the NAACP. Congratulations to each and every one of you on the council and all of our terrific staff for their role in this achievement. Congratulations.
Ms. Plummer asked that be displayed in the dusted off Stella Warner box downstairs once we get back.
Terrific. Yes. Now on to council business. Madam Clerk, please share announcements, agenda changes, or petitions.
Good morning, Mr. President and council members. There is one announcement. A public hearing on the sectional map amendment to implement the approved and adopted Shady Grove minor master plan amendment will be held on November 9th, 2021 at 1:30 p.m. The council has not received any petitions, Mr. President. That is all.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. The clerk has distributed the minutes to council members for the meetings of July 16th, 19th, 20th, and 26th, 2021, and the approval of the closed session minutes of July 19th, 2021. Are there any changes? Hearing no objection, the minutes are approved as submitted. Now the council can sit as the Board of Health. Are we ready to begin with the update? Dr. Stoddard, welcome.
Welcome. I think
Dr. Bridgers, Dr. Kroll, wonderful.
Good morning.
Welcome. The floor is yours, gentlemen.
Good morning, Council.
Sorry, we're running behind.
No worries. We've made some adjustments to our schedule, although we have meetings regarding some of the information that we will provide you with an update. But we have a cadre of individuals assembled this morning to provide the council a comprehensive update, sitting as a Board of Health, along with our partners, our Montgomery County Public School partners. Also joining us this morning is Mr. Sean O'Donnell, who has been supporting some of the messaging and some of the day-to-day activities in his role as a public health emergency manager under public health. But before we get into the COVID update, Mr. O'Donnell is going to walk through the pulse report and the slide decks that we use to provide the data. I just wanted to remind folks that we are in flu season, that flu season is upon us, and we've worked very diligently with our occupational medical services and our other partners to establish employee flu clinics as well as community level flu clinics. According to the CDC and the ACIP, their ACIP committee, the flu vaccine and flu shot is recommended for all individuals who are eligible to receive them. But first and foremost, we want to remind those individuals that small percentage of the population who is still unvaccinated, excluding those individuals where a vaccine is forthcoming on the horizon, but we encourage all of folks to get vaccinated. And then in addition to getting vaccinated, get your flu vaccine. And so I'm just going to go down a list of those clinics summarily, just quickly before we get into the COVID update. And so we have employee clinics scheduled on the following days. This information will be posted on our website, and there will be additional reminders for the community as we identify additional sites or solidify those sites that have yet to be determined. We have community employee flu shot scheduled on October the 14th, October the 20th at our Dennis Avenue Health Center from 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. We have an employee flu clinic scheduled on October 27th at 1401 Rockville Pike, third floor conference room from 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. At 401 Hungerford Drive, conference room A and B on October 28th. And this is again from 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. Quickly shifting over to our community flu clinics. We have a clinic scheduled at the University of Shady Grove on Friday, October the 15th for faculty and students from 10 to 11:30, and then for the general public in the afternoon from 2 p.m. to 6 p.m. And then again on Friday, October 22nd, public clinic from 2 to 6 p.m. We're also working with our school health services and our Montgomery County Public School partners to identify 3 possible high school sites to be determined and open to the public. And so at this time, I'll ask Mr. O'Donnell to shift and pivot over to our COVID update and run through the slides. We continue to maintain the lowest test positivity and case rate in the state of Maryland. The case rate is 10.86 as of this morning. Our test positivity is 2.06%. We still see moderate to lower transmissions of the virus in the community. We had 103 cases reported this morning, 13 hospitalizations, and 1 death. We continue to vaccinate those individuals in addition to the Pfizer vaccine being eligible to those individuals. We vaccinated 882 individuals who are immunocompromised, and this has come online since Moderna was authorized for this population. And so, Mr. O'Donnell, I'll stop here, and if you would walk the council through the slide deck regarding our rates, our breakthrough cases, our planning for boosters and third shots and where we are and the numbers that we have for that. Also, those 217 community partners and providers who have vaccines available, and then a little bit about our scheduling and our targeted sites based on our projected demand for those individuals who are eligible, who've received the Pfizer series. So I'll stop there and turn it over to Mr. O'Donnell to continue with the presentation.
Thank you, Dr. Bridgers. I believe you've covered most of the latest trending numbers with transmission rates and cases. Just as an update, the numbers continue to tick up with our percentage of county residents vaccinated across the board. Of all the eligible vaccinees, the 12 and over, we are now at 89% fully vaccinated, 98% with at least one shot. Again, I know you touched on this. Montgomery County is, our transmission rates have been trending down from the state reports, and the case rates per 100,000 were just a little over 10. If they continue to trend down, we'll move into the next lower category of community transmission. We certainly hope that we continue to go in that direction. Within the areas of the county where vaccinations have occurred, we continue to, as we get towards the last percentage points of eligible populations, there are very few neighborhood tracts that have lower vaccination rates. We continue to work with our community partners and our outreach partners to try to increase turnout and provide vaccination events in those neighborhoods. We've seen as we track the racial and ethnic rates of vaccination, we continue to see each of our groups trending upwards. Our Black and African American residents are now within 2 percentage points of our white non-Hispanic, and our Latino populations are at a very similar level to our Asian and Pacific Islander populations. Again, just to remind folks that it's hard to track to the exact percentage point since we do have individuals who don't indicate their racial or ethnic background. To address the issue that a lot of people do bring up about breakthrough cases or cases that occur within our vaccinated populations, we do see about a third of our cases and a third of our hospitalizations are individuals who have previously been vaccinated. And those numbers are a little bit higher, again, in our county because we have such a high vaccination ratio, vaccination to unvaccinated. When we look at the percentage of cases and hospitalizations that are attributable to the very small number of people still unvaccinated, you see that they make up a very high percentage of those cases relative to the number of people that are still remain in that group. When we look at who is becoming significantly ill and hospitalized amongst our vaccinated populations, it is predominantly our seniors, those over 50 years old. So that certainly, based on our local data, makes a pretty good case for looking at boosters as something that can help to increase the immunity response in those seniors. Just to, as we're keeping track of the vaccinations that are going on and the testing going on, we do continue to see an increase in testing across our county provided sites, as well as seeing high testing totals across all providers. At latest count, there was approximately 39,000 tests provided last week amongst all providers. So still a robust quantity of testing occurring throughout the county. To go to the latest on the booster authorizations and navigate through where our federal partners were, on Thursday evening, the CDC director took the information provided by FDA and the CDC Advisory Committee on Immunization Practices and issued an official authorization from the CDC. Friday morning, Maryland issued their authorization in concurrence with the CDC guidance, and that day Montgomery County began administering booster shots at our public sites. To clarify who are getting these third doses, what we call a third dose is specific to individuals with compromised immune systems. and that is at least 28 days after they've received a second dose. This is considered part of their of the normal set of shots that immunocompromised individuals need to get. They're recommended to get three doses now, and that has been approved for both Pfizer and Moderna. Not yet the Johnson & Johnson vaccine. As far as the booster shots that are now authorized, that is only for Pfizer recipients, and it needs to be at least 6 months after the second dose has been given. The groups that have been recommended to receive them are any individual age 65 and older, and any individual age 50 to 64 with an underlying medical condition. The CDC has also authorized other individuals from 18 to 49 with the same underlying medical conditions, as well as individuals with an increased occupational or institutional setting risk. So the question does come out, what are those medical conditions and what are those increased occupational risks? They are essentially the same medical conditions and same occupational risks that were used during the prioritization phase of getting vaccine out. So I won't go through all of these. It's a fairly long list. We will have these up on our website to help people navigate if they're in one of these groups. And you know, again, it's the same priority groups that we used when we rolled out the vaccine. Just to help folks understand how the process works when you get to a vaccination site, if you're looking for a third dose or a booster, if you're immunocompromised and it's been over 28 days for your since your last vaccine, you can receive Pfizer or Moderna. We'll ask to see your vaccination record, either your card or a printout, because we want to ensure that we're giving the right vaccine to you and it's been the right amount of time. If you don't have access to those, we do have a process of looking that up. It does take a little more time to do that. So we ask people to bring their records when they can. As far as the booster shots, if they've received Pfizer and completed their first 2 courses, we just ask that they attest that they have one of the underlying medical conditions or are in one of those occupations. We don't require any documentation or proof of that. We also emphasize that the COVID-19 vaccines are not interchangeable. We've been asked to ensure that those who receive Pfizer, those who have received Moderna would receive Moderna. We do expect that the federal government is looking at the Moderna data, and we hope to have an update on Moderna boosters and J&J boosters sometime in the near future. As far as how that impacts the county's plans for rolling out boosters, we did plot out the doses that were given out across all county providers back in the spring, and then plotted that against a 6-month return from those second doses. And we see that, again, that was predominantly our seniors over the first few months. The way this worked in our county was that the county received primarily Moderna for the first few months of our operations, while our pharmacy partners who were doing assisted living and other congregate living spaces were primarily working off of Pfizer. So we do expect that those pharmacies that are now providing boosters to those congregate living facilities are very active now, and they're providing the Pfizer boosters. The county expects to be a little bit busier once Moderna gets approved, since a lot of the residents who are not in those facilities did receive Moderna initially. We do have a pretty good estimate of what number of people that is by age. It's a little bit more difficult to estimate the numbers based on the very long list of medical conditions and the long set of groupings for occupational risks. That and the fact that it's going to be a self-identification process makes it hard to pin down exactly how many people will be coming out. We have, in addition to the number of immunocompromised individuals we've seen since that started, the county sites have seen over 300 individuals coming in for a Pfizer booster so far. We do want to emphasize that the rollout of these boosters is a little different than the first and second doses, largely because vaccine is much more widely available now. Our pharmacies and our grocery chains, as well as our private providers, all have access to vaccine. And we looked at how many of these are listed on the state site. There's more than 217 vaccination sites visible within Montgomery County. We are not telling individuals they need to go back to the same place they got their second dose. For many people, if it was a mass vac site or some of the other sites, those are not going to be in existence right now. Even the sites the county worked out of, we've had to move out of necessity to different sites throughout our response. So we're encouraging folks to go online, search out where these are. Our call center will help people find vaccination sites. One thing you want to do is just make sure that they have, if you're due to get a Pfizer booster, that they have Pfizer. And then when the other ones are authorized, that you, again, just determine which vaccines the site has. We still want to emphasize the priority of getting everyone a first and second dose. That is still an incredibly high priority of ours, even while boosters are going out, because those are the individuals at the greatest risk right now for obtaining COVID or passing it on. Again, we are planning to do this with a number of our partners, just as we've done the other vaccination rollouts. Our nursing home and assisted living and long-term care facilities are working with specific pharmacy partners to get vaccines out to them. We've been working with aging and disability and our group homes and DDA homes. We have a number of partners, including Giant and the Primary Care Coalition, who are working to ensure that they all have access to vaccines. We will continue working with our minority health initiatives as well and our hospital partners. I can't say enough about how much the minority health initiatives have done to increase vaccination rates, ensure that the conversation is occurring within all of our populations in our county. The data we showed you earlier on vaccination rates amongst our different ethnic and racial groups really helps to hammer home how important these partners have been in getting people vaccinated. We do plan to expand the volume that we can do by moving to some larger facilities in the coming weeks. By October 11th, we are looking to routinely be at East County Recreation Center, Montgomery College Germantown, and the Silver Spring Civic Building. In some cases, this will be 7 days a week. In other cases, it will be for a certain number of days a week, as is available from the buildings. We're already beginning to onboard staff to develop that surge capacity, and we'll continue to plan to go back to the pop-up sites, the independent living sites where we did previous vaccinations. We realize not everybody has the ability to get out to the sites which we're running in the county. And then finally, to turn our attention to the pediatric vaccination updates. I know a lot of people are very anxious or really looking forward to the expanded age groups. We're monitoring along that. We, to the best of our knowledge, it looks like Pfizer will present some data very soon, and it may take 4 weeks or more for the federal government to issue an authorization for that, which would put us near the end of October or possibly in November. So we are tracking along with that. We'll, of course, work with our school partners as far as getting messages out and doing some clinics at our schools. We're just emphasizing that because of the younger age of these kids, it's going to be very important to have their parent or guardian with them, not only for the consent portion, but also because younger children really benefit from having their parents there, and our clinical staff benefit from having the parents help us get those shots into their kids. So again, we'll coordinate with all of our county partners on the rollout of the pediatric vaccinations as well. That's all the updates I have for you all today, but happy to answer any questions.
Thank you.
Mr. O'Donnell, you can stop sharing your slides. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Councilmember Friedson.
Thank you very much. First of all, really appreciate the presentation, all the hard work, the fact that the numbers are going down, that we have the best numbers in the state, 10.86 and for case rate and 2.06 for test positivity is a testament to all of your hard work, and just want to thank the public health team for that. We hope that these trends continue, that we reach the Delta surge and that we're on the better end of it, but we have to keep up and continue to be diligent. And, again, thanks for continuing to work on the vaccination effort to make sure that everybody is vaccinated in our community, but certainly where we stand with perhaps the best number of any large jurisdiction in the country is remarkable and continues to be the reason why we're doing as well as we're doing. Appreciate the update on boosters. Do you have an expected timeline? You had mentioned about Moderna and Johnson & Johnson. I know we got the timeline expected, give or take, with the 5 to 11-year-old approval, but is there an expected timeline for Moderna, Johnson & Johnson boosters that we should be aware of and the residents should be aware of?
So I'll jump in. I know Dr. Stoddard and I have been talking about this. We originally thought that that we wouldn't start vaccinating folks until actually next month, and then ACIP changed and FDA changed, and we vaccinated them 2 months earlier. The original window was 8 months, then they reduced it to 6 months. So for the 5 to 11-year-old, the data that I'm seeing, the information that I'm seeing, it may be early November. For the 5 to 11-year-olds, we're waiting now to see if Moderna will submit their data and the results over the next couple of weeks. The original challenge was their initial report looked at a reduction in their dosage for a booster shot, and they've gone back and they've reassessed their data and they will be presented. That's pretty much what I've read over the last couple of days.
My understanding is that Moderna has submitted the data for the booster specifically, and that FDA is reviewing it. And I think that same 3 to 4 week timeline that Mr. O'Donnell alluded to for the 5 to 11-year-olds would apply to that review process for the boosters as well. So my guess is certainly by the end of October that Moderna boosters would very likely be approved. They will follow the same process with the FDA advisory group, the ACIP, the FDA, and CDC opining on them before they're launched. But I would guess that 3 to 4 weeks would be what I would expect.
Thank you for that. A few questions following up on the hearing we had a couple weeks ago regarding some of the MCPS works. I see Ms. Dublinsky has just put her camera on. Some of this is a combination of the health department and DHHS and MCPS, and so I'll just ask broadly, and whoever would be most appropriate to answer, I would appreciate it. Just regarding contact tracing, who is responsible for contact tracing specifically when a positive case is determined? Is that DHHS? Is that the principal and MCPS? Is that a combination?
So I think, good morning, Councilman Friedson. I'll start that, and then I think Mr. Blinsky can jump in on this. But I think it's important to make a distinction between close contact investigation and the formal thing we call in health contact tracing. And I think that's been a challenge. And in that sense, but what you're calling contact tracing is both the process of identifying people who have been in close contact with a case that is positive, and that's an MCPS role, sharing that information with our disease control team so that they can do formal contact tracing, and with the state is part of the HHS function. So once we have those names, then HHS and the state take over and do the contact tracing, the formal contact tracing process that we've been familiar with for most of the last year.
So determining who was a close once the positive case is determined, determining who was a close contact and therefore would have to take protocols, including quarantining, is an MCPS responsibility. The broader public health contact tracing in terms of the transmission of the virus is the health department. I just want to make sure I'm clear.
No, that's correct. That's correct. We have been working with MCPS to identify the teachers and the admin to identify those close contacts. As Dr. Kroll indicated, and Ms. Linsky is on as well. She can confirm the role and the process that we went through to identify the support mechanisms and the notification mechanisms that would identify those close contacts, and we would do the outbreak investigation, determine the level of community transmission, et cetera.
Okay. And who is training them? How are we recruiting the contact tracers? Are we asking for more folks to do this? Is there an opportunity for those with subject matter expertise to volunteer to help with this, given the fact that it's a substantial undertaking for the school system?
So, Councilmember, I just wanted to just ask, and this is we can do the questions and we can do the question and Q&A, but we had actually thought that we would give you all a more integrated view of what's happening with the school system, both in terms of testing, rapid testing, and the results that we're seeing, and the processes that we've been going through. If you like, we can do the questions one off, but we could also just do a full.
That'd be great. Then I'll hold off on remaining questions, and we can get to it at that point.
Yeah.
Okay. I'll then hold on. I have a couple other questions, but I'll wait for that. Dr. Kroll, appreciate the fact that you were doing that, and I will hold off at that point. So I'll yield back to you, Mr. President.
Okay. Thank you, Council Vice President Albornoz.
Thank you both very much. You've covered just about all the bases I wanted to have covered this morning, so thank you. Just two quick questions. I know that we had developed a robust transportation plan for families that were not able to access various health clinics during the vaccination process for all of our generations, all of our age categories. I just wanted to confirm that those same transportations will be available to families once we are able to secure vaccinations for kids between 5 and 11.
I could say that I know we had done transportation for elders in the community, folks who were not able to get to where they needed to go, but we are working to make sure. And so that information, those resources are still in place. So folks who have transportation difficulties, it's available.
And we continue to work with MCPS to identify those potential sites, especially those school sites along transportation routes that would be available. And we've used the same framework and infrastructure along those lines as well, because again, we want to make sure we have the highest level of accessibility to those individuals that may need transportation, not only for their parents, but school-age kids to get to our sites.
Great. And along those lines, and first of all, Dr. Bridgers, welcome as acting. I believe this is your first session with us in that capacity. And I sleep a little better at night knowing that you're at the helm and have helped us through this transition. And I feel a great degree of confidence in the continuity of service here. So I appreciate you being on board. I know that you all have done really great work in partnership with independent schools as well over the last year. Both to educate and forge partnerships and alliances. And our independent schools are wide in terms of who they serve and where they are. And it's not just folks from affluent communities who attend them. So can you talk a little bit about that partnership and alliance with our independent schools, particularly as we prepare for kids between the ages of 5 and 11 there as well?
Sure. Thank you. Great question, Council Vice President Albornoz. Dr. Stoddard and I actually have a conversation, yet another town hall that I'm picking up from where he and Dr. Gales left off this Friday to talk about vaccinations for 5 to 11-year-olds, to talk about the recommendations. We've also had conversations with Ms. Kinch regarding recommendations by school health nurses and quarantines and outbreaks along those guidelines and those CDC guidelines that we use as part of our framework and our investigation process. And so we will have conversations. We've had conversations over the past couple of weeks, and we have yet another town hall to answer all those questions and provide those supports, as well as look at those sites that we can potentially host again to have those vaccine pods in place so that we can be inclusive in our vaccine administration.
And we do through licensure and regulatory and also school health, as Dr. Bridgers alluded to, do have regular connections with the independent schools, give them advice and feedback on what they're seeing inside the schools, obviously to provide that support. But then we're having this much larger conversation, renewing those again on Friday, as we had throughout the pandemic, to really engage on strategy and understand better what they're seeing, and also give them some sense of what we're thinking in terms of the 5 to 11-year-old vaccinations. And we'll talk more about the testing protocols that we're going to be discussing with MCPS and what that means for the independent schools as well. And so all of those things will be discussed with them on Friday at a strategic level, and then obviously at the operational level. It's been continuing seamlessly since the beginning.
Thank you. And then a final question. I'm not sure if it's appropriate to ask this now or later, but I'll ask it now and it can be answered later. We had a robust discussion as we implemented the new rapid testing policy within MCPS, and wanting to ensure that our school health nurses had the support that they need to be able to comply with the heavy and significant responsibilities that they already had, in addition to ensuring they had the support they need to provide the testing within schools. Where are we with that? What are the updates? I know we had looked into working with contractors to help supplement the work, but I know those contractors are spread thin because we're not the only jurisdiction in the region looking to do something like this. Just any updates you can provide there would be helpful.
That was one of the things I wanted to do as we talked about the full MCPS piece. I will make sure we address that.
We have some slides coming up, I think, from MCPS.
Perfect. Thank you.
Councilmember Reamer.
Thank you. I think you're addressing the question I wanted to ask about schools. So you're meeting to follow up on that. Can you just please again summarize for us, what the next several weeks will look like for making vaccinations available at schools as opposed to sending families to county vaccination sites?
Sure, I'll start off, and thank you, Councilmember Reamer, for that series of questions. So, looking back to July, we began having conversations not only about third shots, boosters, but as well as vaccinating those 5-year-olds who remain unvaccinated until we get an approved vaccine online. So we've had multiple conversations with our community partners. We work with our minority health initiatives. We work with our health initiative fund partners, and we're having ongoing conversations about those access points to increase equity. And so we continue to have those conversations and plan. We also have had conversations with the Maryland Department of Health and looking at additional strategies, those most efficient strategies that will not only allow us to deploy a robust response to identify those individuals who are symptomatic, but also those individuals who may be eligible for quarantine or an alternate program to quarantine. So what does it look like over the next couple of months? We continue to plan, we continue to have conversations in anticipation of having a vaccine available. We continue to identify sites that won't disrupt individuals' normalcy as we return to some level of normalcy, but identify those sites that have more access, as Council Vice President Alvarez indicated, as far as transportation. We continue to have conversations and open and frank conversations with our MCPS and our independent school partners. So over the next 3 to 4 months, those are the current plans on the horizon as we continue to look at best practices and evaluate those plans to make sure that they're most effective.
Thank you. I'm not sure if I fully am understanding. Are we going to be able to, for example, offer clinics at the high schools, the moment those, that the vaccine is approved?
Yes, we're looking at high schools, middle schools, and elementary schools based on equity to have those conversations and those sites in our independent school systems.
I think the only thing to keep in mind is obviously there are 134 elementary schools, there are 40 middle schools. And so, and recognizing that the school health staff that we were leveraging heavily to do vaccinations throughout the early, the spring and summer months are otherwise occupied doing school health related work. And so it's a matter of how many staff we can get on board. And to be clear, we've been recruiting for school health nurses continuously throughout the pandemic. And this increased contractor work, we've not, we've set an initial target, but not an upper limit on how far we're willing to go with that as well. So it's a matter of how quickly and how many people we can get on board to do this, with the obvious recognition that, particularly with the Pfizer vaccine, you can't take a bag of vaccine and one person to send them out to a school and expect that to be a successful operation. The reconstitution and other work that you have to do with the vaccine to prep it and distribute it is not insignificant. And so when you're talking about 134 schools, we're thinking more about a cluster-based model where it's, in close proximity to one another, as opposed to 175 elementary and middle schools getting a clinic each at the same time. If we did a clinic at each school, you'd have to order them out where you're doing one school 1 week and then next school weeks later. And so obviously from an equity standpoint, it gets hard to pick and choose who goes first and who goes last there. It is certainly our objective to have as many vaccination opportunities as possible, recognizing what Mr. O'Donnell said, there's 105,000 students that would fall into this category, not just students, but the children who would fall into this category. And those represent our best key to drive down community transmission even further by getting them vaccinated. So we're totally on board with having as many opportunities in those initial weeks as possible, but it will be in part dictated by how many staff we can recruit to it's not a monetary issue, it's a recruitment of people who are eligible to give the vaccine issue. And that's what we're working on.
I would just add to that, Councilmember, that we have, as we work to expand rapid testing and talk with our partners that we want to bring on board to do that work, we're also asking them to recruit with the capacity in that same group of folks to be able to switch over to vaccination as for young children as those vaccines become authorized and available. So we are building the capacity, even though we're not yet there and ready to use it. So getting them embedded in the system now will help us to be able to make that pivot when it's time.
And one more key point. So we've got a lot of questions about volunteer. We have parent medical staff who are interested in participating. If you're interested in being a volunteer to support vaccination efforts in the 5 to 11 population, please do register with the Maryland Response Program. They do the pre-credentialing and get people, badged and identified. I'm quite confident we will be leveraging volunteers to enact some of these processes, these clinics. And so the more people we have who are willing and able to support those clinics is important. So I don't want to leave people who think that, can I volunteer to help? Yes, you can. We just want to have you go through the Maryland Response Program because they'll do the credentialing. And frankly, they provide the liability protections that you would want as a medical provider and things like that. Okay.
So we need parents to volunteer. We asked them to sign up with the Maryland Medical Corps. Thank you for that. And the good news is for 12 and up, we're at 97% plus vaccination rate for our students, which is just it's amazing. Really happy to see that. So we know we should get to a similar place with our 5 and up, and hopefully there'll be a huge burst in the first couple of weeks, and that will really tamp down transmission. And we can just roll this out as aggressively as possible. So thank you.
Thank you. And folks might want to hold off on the schools questions until we see their slides and presentation. Councilmember Glass.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. And following the thought that Council Member Reamer just said, I too am incredibly proud of our residents who continue to get vaccinated. And according to the slides, 100% of seniors have received at least one dose, and 98% of residents older the age of 12 have received at least one dose, and that's incredible. So thank you to all of our residents, and of course, thank you to Montgomery County, HHS, all of our providers for enabling those actions to have taken place and for people to get healthy and safe. And we are in the middle, or we just started autumn. And I know a lot of people have gotten sniffles and coughs. And personally, over the weekend, I had some pretty bad allergies. And I was worried that people would think it was COVID. But I know it was allergies, and making sure those who were around me knew that it was allergies and nothing more. And I share that as a way because I appreciate at the top of this presentation saying that it's also the start of flu season. So we have the confluence of allergies, ragweed, seasonal allergies, and the flu. And I know personally that while I'm not eligible for the booster, I'm going to continue waiting and delay getting the booster so that others who are more vulnerable get it first. But I am going to get a flu shot. And so in addition to the pharmacies and the grocery stores, can you share with us what other county facilities, residents, or at least county employees can go to receive the flu shot so that we can continue being a healthy community?
Sure. Thank you for that, Councilmember Glass. Let me just run down the list. According to the dates that the listing that I received from OMS and our immunization team here. So beginning for employees, I will start with the employee listing. On October 14th, here at Dennis Avenue, we will have the Kaiser mobile van available from 9 o'clock to 12 p.m. On October 20th, the Kaiser van will return and we will have flu vaccines available, flu shots available from 9 o'clock a.m. to 12 o'clock p.m. On October 27th at 1401 Rockville Pike in the third floor conference room. And all of this information I will post as well at 9 a.m. to 12 o'clock p.m. On October 28th, we will have flu vaccines for employees. Again, these are for employees at our 401 Hungerford Drive office building and conference room A and B from 9 o'clock to 12 p.m. Now shifting to our community flu sites, flu clinics at the University of Shady Grove on Friday, October the 15th from 10 o'clock a.m. till 11:30 a.m. The clinic will be open to students and faculty. And then in the afternoon from 2 to 6 p.m. is open to the public.
Well, thank you. Keep
No,
going.
I'm not finished. I have a couple more.
Okay.
And on Friday, October 22nd, again at the University of Shady Grove, we have the public flu clinic, community flu clinic from 2 p.m. to 6 p.m. And then we have community level sites in collaboration with MCPS and our school health services. Now, those sites are still to be determined. We're looking at, again, equity and access and to make sure that they are accessible along transportation routes. But we're identifying 3 high schools, and that will be determined, and those sites will be posted on our website.
Great. Thank you. Thank you very much for that rundown of locations where residents and county employees can get vaccine, I'm interchanging them, can get the flu shot. And I hope everybody takes advantage of that, because we know that the stigma attached in public right now with anybody who exhibits any sneezing or coughing or symptoms like that, people automatically think that it's COVID or something. And, I want to get a mask, quite frankly, that says it's just allergies, but not to confuse anybody, but it's real. And I'll be getting that flu shot. And I do also have questions about schools, and particularly about the outdoor dining and what progress has been made there during lunch, but I'll hold on to that question for that leader presentation. But Dr. Bridgers, thank you and your team for this very good update. Back to you, Mr. President.
And Councilmember Glass, let me just remind folks that we still operate the community level testing sites at our Up-County Regional clinic, our Montgomery County Rockville site, and our Dennis Avenue site. So if you don't know if you have allergies or you're not symptomatic or you aren't sure, we encourage folks get tested. We've increased our testing volume, and we're able to get folks tested to know their status. And if unfortunately they test positive, they're able to know and can continue to further mitigate any community level transmission by knowing that they're positive and quarantining or isolating themselves. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Bridges, real quickly, can you just clarify, you mentioned the hours of operation for those and for the vaccination clinics earlier. I've gotten this feedback before, but I didn't hear a lot of evening hours. And I've gotten the feedback from the public that we need more evening hours because people are at work during, many people during conventional hours. It would be better if it was a staffing issue to forego, one day during the day and have more evening hours. Can you clarify where we have evening hours available for people?
Sure. Thank you, Council President Hucker. The University at Shady Grove, we have the evening clinic from 2 p.m. to 6 p.m. We have on Friday, October 22nd, 2 p.m. to 6 p.m. And we're working with MCPS to identify evening sites for those high schools. And so we've targeted evening and weekend so that folks can get vaccinated. So we don't have the weekend schedule yet or the daily schedule yet for those 3 high school or those 3 MCPS sites that are yet to be determined. But we've also had a conversation with our team, and we understand the need for greater access. And so we're looking at, in addition to those clinics, having clinics Say, for example, at New Hampshire Estates, we've had conversations with Delegate Jacudian and looking at others if there's vaccine available, flu vaccines available based on our request from the Maryland Department of Health. And so we recognize that we want to have greater access. And so we are planning for more sites, more evening sites. So stay tuned. The sites will be published on the website.
Okay, so you agree that's a weakness?
Yes,
we're going to expect to see more soon. Okay,
absolutely. It's been our practice, not only with testing, but vaccinations for COVID, as well as now looking at those individuals who would request greater access in the evenings for flu clinics as well. So we have to take that into consideration.
And last for me, everything's been, but can you just clarify again or confirm the county-run tests will catch the variant breakthrough cases for already vaccinated residents, correct?
That's correct.
Great.
That's correct. Based on the
everybody
sequence,
to hear that.
They don't sequence every specimen that's turned in, but the more that we test, the larger the sequence pool that the state labs, Hopkins, University of Maryland, are able to determine and identify the variant, the level of transmission of that variant or any strain in the community. And that's how we can determine that.
Great. And for the vaccination, I hope we'll be making the evening and weekend clinics available, the hours available where we have the lowest vaccination rates, like Silver Spring, Germantown, Gaithersburg, Up County Regional Center, for example, right?
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah, right. Okay, great. Okay, so Mr. D'Andrea, Ms. Dublinsky, thank you for waiting so patiently. Eager to hear your update.
So, Councilmember Harper, I wanted to start with a couple of things and then turn it over to Mr. D'Andrea and Mr. Dublinsky. First, just a quick note that this continues to be a collaboration between both MCPS and HHS to try to figure out how we manage to keep our students safe and in school. We've stood up since we started doing rapid testing. We have now tested up to on an average of 1,000 students a week with rapid tests who were symptomatic in the system. And I think what we're seeing is that the combination of the work that MCPS is doing and the work that we're doing together is driving down the numbers of positives. So we are, for example, I think we're running about 1.6% of positives of the tests that we're doing across this past week. I won't go into the details around that. I'll ask Mr. D'Andrea talk about the good news and don't want to steal any of his thunder. But the work with MCPS has been around trying to make sure that we had good systems in place for contact tracing or for contact tracing writ large. And I think Ms. Dublinsky or Mr. D'Andrea can explain the details about how that process is unfolding. But we're also looking to explore ways to minimize the close contact exposure of students that have tested positive. The fact that we now are doing rapid testing and are only basing our quarantine decisions off of symptoms and our close contact, symptoms and positive tests, and our close contacts off of positive tests means that we're impacting students at a much lower rate, I think, than we have been. It's outside of the school year. The other thing is that we are, to your point, your question earlier, we are, given the stress that our school health nurses have been under, and I want to pause and say both our nurses and our techs that are in schools have done an incredible job throughout this pandemic. And I really do appreciate both the enormous burden we have placed on them and the way they have stood up to that over this last 20 plus months. But they're tired and it's understandable and they are stretched thin already. So we've been working with providers to expand capacity, and we've asked them to expand their ability to do rapid testing for us and developing a model that allows us to move our testing capacity around to regionally and to do a rapid response for kids when we've got children that are symptomatic and when the nursing staff is too busy to be able to fold the testing into their ongoing workload. As I said earlier, we're also asking them to stand up, and I recruit staff that are capable of pivoting and shifting over to vaccination for younger children when it's necessary to do that. So as that comes online, we will be ready and prepared, and the rest is working out when and how we do that in collaboration with the school system. The last thing, and I'll turn it over to Mr. D'Andrea, is that we are working to make sure that we've talked about doing some integration of data. We've got our IT systems working and coordinating with each other to try to put together an integrated data system. We're still wrestling with that, so we can present you in one place the collective information about testing and vaccination and positivity and close contact quarantines. Our recruitment is moving apace. We have to, all of the folks that are coming into the system have to pass the background check that MCPS conducts. So they're in the process of working through getting background checks on all those staff, and as they are background checked and cleared, then they're cleared. We're clear to expand our rapid testing process. So with that, I think I'm going to well, two things. One is just to say, to add my voice to that of everyone else around flu season and Councilmember Glass, absolutely. I'll be joining you in getting a flu shot very shortly as well. And I will ask people to continue to encourage folks to test and to get tested for COVID-19. It is still our radar for this system. And then the last one is to remind folks that for vaccinations now and for flu shots, pharmacies and drugstores throughout the county are open in the evenings and are available to provide flu shots to individuals. So there is an option and an opportunity for folks to do that. In addition to whatever we stand up to our county-run clinics, there's opportunities for folks to go, other opportunities for folks to get vaccinated or get tested and get their flu shots. And then I think so I'll stop there on all of those comments, and I'll just turn it over to Mr. Tiandri and let him talk with you about where we are and share with you what I think is some good news in our process.
Good morning, council members. Thank you very much for the opportunity to share today. I want to just start by extending a very special thank you to Dr. Cole and all the members of DHHS for their partnership with us as we've worked to get all of our students back in school 5 days a week. And we know that there's definitely been a lot of successes as well as a significant number of challenges, and we've been able to work together with them, ultimately create the best results for students. And so we were asked today to just share a very brief update on some key data points, and then we're happy to answer any questions that you may have as well. So to start with, I know that Dr. Cole shared information about the rapid testing program in the health rooms. We also wanted to share a very brief update on the screening testing program. As you're aware, the state provides school systems throughout Maryland 2 options for testing programs in schools, one being the diagnostic testing program, which started in the health rooms last week or 2 weeks ago, and then one being the screening testing program, where school systems can partner with state vendors or seek reimbursement for implementing their own testing. So we at MCPS partnered with one of the state vendors, and that vendor is currently operating in 109 schools throughout the school system. As of last Friday, 5,826 tests had been administered through that screening testing program. And again, just as a reminder from the previous visit when we came to the county council a couple of weeks ago, right now the screening testing is operating for grades pre-K through 6, and then we'll be expanding to all schools throughout the school system throughout the month of October. Of those 5,826 tests that have been administered as of last Friday, only 11 of those tests came back positive. Obviously, we would like the number to be 0, but we're very thankful that the number is so low. One of the other pieces that we know there have been a lot of questions about is being able to look at the data in terms of positive cases by week. And so what you see on the screen now shows information for the 4 weeks of school that have been completed so far. Since we have had several holidays, you'll notice in parentheses the number of school days that occurred during each of those weeks. And then on the right side of the screen, you will see the number of positive cases for each of those weeks, broken down by students and by staff. So you'll see that the numbers are relatively consistent for the first, third, and the fourth week. There is a slight uptick during the third week, which we speculate is possibly due to the fact that during the second week of school, Monday and Tuesday were holidays, so which resulted in a 4-day weekend, and we know that there was a lot of travel that occurred during that time. So as of last Friday, we've had 282 positive student cases and then 68 positive staff cases. The next question that naturally comes after looking at the information on positive cases is how many students are being quarantined as a result of these positive cases. So on the next slide, you'll see information about the individuals who are entering quarantine by week. And so for this particular information, I want to clarify that the data that you see on the screen reflects that particular week, how many students and families were notified that an individual needed to go into quarantine during the course of that week. And so for the first 2 weeks of school, there were a significant number of quarantines based on students who were close contacts of individuals who had tested positive, as well as close contacts of individuals who are symptomatic. And so you will see very high numbers during those first 2 weeks of school. Through our partnership with DHHS and the updated recommendations that DHHS provided at the end of the second week of school, there was an adjustment made in terms of quarantine processes for students who had been in contact with symptomatic individuals. And so you'll see that that number went down to 0 for the third and the fourth weeks. And then you'll notice from the third to the fourth week, a very significant drop in terms of the overall number of students who are in quarantine, based on the fact that now rapid testing is fully implemented at all 209 schools. So whereas the first week of school, there were more than 2,000 students who entered quarantine over the course of that week, by the fourth week of school, total number of students last week who entered quarantine was 374. And then you can see the numbers overall of students who have entered quarantine at the bottom of the screen, just over 3,200 for close contacts with positive cases over the course of the past 4 weeks, and then 1,744 for the close contacts with symptomatic individuals during the first 2 weeks of school. We've also worked very closely with DHHS on how we partner with schools, in particular the principals and administrative staff working with school health rooms, to be very intentional about making sure that we are following appropriate processes and determining who close contacts are. And so as a result of that, I'll give one other snapshot, which I know is a common question that we receive. For this past week of school, there were a total of 12 full classes that were entering into quarantine, whereas the previous week, the number was 27. And so, again, that's due to our work with DHHS and the partnership between school administration and school health services in terms of having the conversations and about tuning to quarantine, and also being very intentional about looking at our practices, making sure that we are sharing best practices across all of our schools. So we're being very thoughtful about how our students are interacting throughout the day. So we are looking forward to, as was shared earlier, some upcoming initiatives that should have even greater impacts on the number of students entering quarantine. And we look forward to our continued work with DHHS, and also just want to thank all the council members for your support as we have worked to transition students back into school. With that being said, again, this was, we were requested to just give a very brief update on some key data points. And so I will turn it back over to Dr. Kroll if there's any other items he would like to share before we open up for questions.
I don't think so. In this moment, we can go straight to questions. I think you can see that that one of the things that I'm encouraged by is the degree to which the numbers are coming down for students who are close quarantined. And I don't know if Mr. Blinsky wants to talk a little bit about process for how we do this issue of contact tracing, starting with the work that you all have, the planning, the process that you all put together in partnership with the staff over at HHS.
Sure, thank you. Good morning, Council. So we really have tried to refine our practices and the process in which we identify close contacts. And having those on-site rapid tests has really helped in determining when we have to initiate the contact tracing process and identifying the close contacts. When there is a confirmed positive case, I work closely with the principals and give them basically a checklist of things to ask for from the teachers and other staff who have observed the students throughout the day and the 2 days prior to the positive test. So getting feeding charts from teachers, asking staff who are observing at lunch and recess who the students are playing with or sitting with, talking to teachers when they go to specials and finding out what activities they were engaged in. That has really allowed us to drill deeper and identifying those specific close contacts who have that 15 or more minute of exposure based on distance of either 3 feet or 6 feet, and not over quarantining classes. There are times when there are more students in a single class, as students may switch for subject areas or may interact during recess, but we really are taking the time to get specific information on close contacts. Additionally, we have started the onboarding and hiring process of 10 additional contact tracers. We've advertised for 10 additional more hires, so we'll have a total of 20 contact tracers who will be out to be able to support in schools, observe classrooms, and really further determine close contacts.
So, Mr. Blinsky, I just wanted to just to clarify one other thing. Once you all have identified close contacts, that list then how is that list then shared with disease control for contact tracing?
So the principal shares it with the school health professional that's on site. We collaborate with them to determine the extent of the quarantine, and then all that information is sent over to Department of Health and Human Services to be able to enter into the COVID link so they can follow up appropriately with the positive case and also the quarantine cases.
So the public health role in that then becomes to contact the folks that have been the index person who tested positive and all of the contact families that have been exposed, just to get a sense of where they've been in contact with, what their symptomatology is, and to advise them on the length of time that they need to quarantine and on next steps for keeping tabs on what's happening with their child. So,
sure. And just to add, Dr. Kroll and Mr. Blinsky, when the information is received by HHS Public Health Services in collaboration with the state continues to provide that support for contact tracing, identifying, making the first contact to not only the index case, but those additional contacts that have been determined based on their investigation. More recently, the Maryland Department of Health increased their number of contact tracing of 100 and more, ramping back up in anticipation of not only the current wave that we're in now, but to provide more support to those local jurisdictions who they've previously supported.
The last thing I will say, and I'll stop. We can do I can go to questions if you please. Is that we have the change we see, I think, over the last couple of weeks is a result of the work that we've been doing collaboratively with MCPS, the expansion of rapid testing as well. But also, I believe that parents are now beginning to pay attention and not send symptomatic children to school. And so it is important for parents to remember that if your child is symptomatic, not just COVID symptomatic, but they've got an illness, it's important to keep them home from school. So because that precipitates some of this process of potential positives or potential testing and potential contact tracing and quarantining. So, Councilmember, unless there's something else from our team, then back to you all for questions, Council President.
Terrific. Thank you so much. Councilmember Rice.
Thank you very much. So first and foremost, I just really want to applaud the school system for continuing to navigate these waters and continue to try and answer the call, both from a perspective of keeping our folks in our school community safe and also make sure that we can maintain operating our school system and keeping our kids in the classroom. That's incredibly important. It's a priority that we know you guys share with us. And I really want to thank Department of Health and Human Services for continuing to help as a resource for our school system to be able to make these things happen. Look, at the end of the day, this is going to be about making sure that folks sign on and opt in for testing, that folks embrace the protections that are being put in place by our school system and adhere to those guidelines. And I just really hope that your new process of say yes to the test, or your new sort of public awareness campaign about saying yes to the test and about folks opting in is going to be successful. Because at the end of the day, we will continue to see cases. We know that the school system is just a microcosm of our greater community. And so as we see cases that are in our community, we're going to see cases in our schools. Those things go hand in hand. But at the end of the day, if we can keep them controlled, if we can make sure that we allow for our students to get tested to make sure that their exposure has not been one that has given them COVID and get them back in the classroom quickly, that also is a huge benefit to everyone associated. And so my question is for you, Mr. DeAndrea. Have you seen, when it comes to the community, sort of a shift in terms of folks really understanding that the school system has the best interests of the community at heart, that it really does want to try and keep our kids in school, and so therefore are being more open to opt-in testing as well as to adhering to some of the guidelines that some of the contact tracers in your administration have to give to parents who've been exposed to COVID cases?
Thank you, Councilmember Rice, and we definitely appreciate all of your support as the chair of the Education and Culture Committee. So to that end, I would say that there definitely has been, we feel, progress in terms of families understanding, the work that's happening behind the scenes with DHHS collaboratively to make sure that first and foremost, safety is our top priority. And our Yes to the Test campaign, Say Yes to the Test campaign is underway now. We have seen results already, and obviously it's in the early stages. But as of Friday, we were up to 36,000, just over 36,000 consent forms that have been submitted for the initial targeted grades of pre-K through 6, which is about 45% of that group, which is about a 15 percentage point increase from just where we were about a week and a half ago. So we are continuing to emphasize that, and obviously we'll be expanding to all grade levels. So that's one celebration, and obviously there's more work to do there. But then in terms of the work with the community in partnership with EHHS, I definitely believe that there has been progress there in terms of, we know that as we transition back to school with 100% of students in school buildings, we knew that there would be some challenges, and we hope that families continue to recognize that we're doing everything we can in collaboration with EHHS to make sure that students are in the building, but also first and foremost that students are safe.
Thank you. That's all I have for right now, President Hucker. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Friesen.
Thanks very much. First of all, the numbers really tell a positive story. So I just wanted to echo the appreciation for significant progress that's been made. I mentioned at the last meeting that I thought that we're taking a major step in a better direction, and the numbers bear that out. I think there's still room for refinement, and it's continues to be a building the plane as we go situation, but the ability to adapt and the improvements that have been made are really positive. Just had a couple follow-up questions here, a few follow-up questions. The description of and I don't want to call it contact tracing, to Dr. Kroll, who has proven once again that I am not an expert in public health, so I apologize for that. But in the close contact review, I'll call it, just to make sure that I'm using the proper terms of art and not misappropriating the terminology. The close contact review, to determine quarantining and others before it gets to the health department, is that the principal's responsibility? Is that the local school health professional? I heard both mentioned, but it wasn't clear, who is making that judgment call at the school level.
So I think, Heather, is this one of yours?
The answer. Thank you. So it's not so much a judgment call as it is gathering information. So I lead the principals in telling them what they need to look for and speak to teachers with to find out which students were in close contact. And once they have that information, then we have a collaborative process between me and the principal and the school health. And if needed, we can bring in the additional contacts that I have at Dennis Avenue, the contact tracing department there, to make the final decision of who needs to quarantine. But mostly it's me working with the principal to work with the teachers and the school staff to identify what students had that actual close contact with the individual who's positive.
And are we training the principals on the front end, or is this being dealt with on a case-by-case basis? Something happens, they call you, they talk to the health professional, and it's more iterative, or is there a training and a protocol for all the principals to know what the process is? Because this is certainly outside of their normal duties as a school principal that they have, many have spent their entire careers working towards.
No, definitely. And we hope to alleviate that again with some of the newly trained contact tracers that we'll be having starting as early as this week. I have worked with principals closely since March 2020 on keeping them updated and reviewing processes and giving them, trainings and guiding them through the process. I have great relationships with our principals. They know to call me for any questions they have. So they have been given general guidance, and then for specific cases, because as we know, each situation can be different, they reach out to me and we walk through the process together to identify close contacts and respond to any other issues or questions they have.
Appreciate it. I appreciate the 20 contact tracers that were mentioned, because this is something that we have talked about a lot recently and should be talking about always. And, under Councilmember Navarro and Council Vice President Albernaz's leadership, how many of the 20 contact tracers are bilingual? Do we have a determination of that?
I know I have onboarded currently, there are 6 that have gone through the fingerprinting and compliance training module. And one of those 6 is bilingual. And then we will be identifying the other 10 that we just advertised for, putting out that there's a preference for bilingual applicants.
Appreciate that. I would just, highlight the fact that this has been a major emphasis for all of us here. And so I hope that those numbers and that emphasis can be really pushed forward. I know I'm channeling Councilmember Navarro, Council Vice President Albornoz in that, and all of us, but I just wanted to note that. Okay. At our last session together, Dr. McKnight shared that MCPS is communicating with MSDE and MDH about guidance around a vaccine mandate for COVID. Obviously, we have lots of vaccine mandates in our schools. There are state mandates about that. I just wanted to know if there was any progress or any information that we've heard from either MSDE or MDH on movement on a vaccine mandate for students, not just staff.
Morning, Councilmember Friedson. Based on the information we had received from the Maryland Attorney General, it was shared that schools, that the Attorney General's opinion was that schools did have the ability to require vaccines for students or for staff. And so we are, as you are aware, the Board of Education passed a resolution, so we are making that requirement for staff members. For students, that is something that we are continuing to evaluate, and the superintendents from all 24 school districts I know have had conversations about next steps in that pathway, since typically vaccine mandates are part of state decisions. So at this point, it's something that's continuing to be evaluated.
So it's being reviewed now, and the school system does have the ability to put it in place for a vaccine requirement for students.
Based on the information that we have received, yes. And so we have, for example, with student athletes who are participating in winter or spring sports, we have already announced that requirement that they have to be vaccinated in order to register to participate, unless they have a medical exemption. Then our next phase is with students participating in extracurricular activities, and we're determining the exact rollout of that, but we'll continue to evaluate moving forward.
Glad to hear that it's being evaluated for all students. Just last question. Heard from a lot of parents, obviously it's improved that the number of students who are being quarantined and having to do virtual learning for a period of time has gone down, which is a very positive. There still are, going to be students that have to do virtual because, the nature of this pandemic is not going to be at zero, even though we're working hard to get the numbers down. A number of other schools and school systems have installed cameras into the classrooms. And so when those students have to go from home, it's more of a classroom experience, even though it's not a teacher looking into a Chromebook, in a more traditional Zoom. It's, more of a full classroom experience where you can, see the whiteboard, I guess it's called now. I was going to call it a blackboard, but the whiteboard, as it's called now, and more of a closer to a traditional classroom experience. Is that something that MCPS has looked into? Is that something that could be considered?
MCPS has a fall design team that has been working since last spring on a variety of aspects of the return to in-person learning this fall. And one of those is looking at how we provide instruction during quarantine. So there have been some conversations about that ultimately, if that were to be something that would move forward, that would require close collaboration with our employee associations. Based on the information that we had started with for the beginning of the school year, based on the work of the fall design team, that was not part of the original plan. We were one of the first school systems in the entire metro area to have a comprehensive plan for providing instruction during quarantine, aside from just posting assignments on a website, as was the case in some other school systems. And so we're continuing to evaluate how that's working and make adjustments moving forward. And obviously that goes hand in hand with wanting to reduce the number of students in quarantine altogether.
Appreciate it. Yeah, if you just keep us, posted, not just about that one particular option of live streaming lessons during quarantine, but just the general plan as it evolves. It sounds like it's an evolving process and will continue to be. And so if you could keep us apprised of that, it would be helpful, since obviously we're hearing from a lot of parents, on these particular issues. So thanks for that. Appreciate the responses, and I'll yield back to you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilmember Navarro.
Thank you, Mr. President. And thank you so much to this team. This entire presentation, I think, is really a testament to very hard work. I mean, it's clear that other jurisdictions have been working very hard as well, but not all of them have the type of results that we are seeing. And I think that we do need to, pause and also acknowledge how our residents have stepped up from all corners of the county. And what an incredible story to see the vaccination rates, especially for our Black and Latino communities, really truly seeing that in our Black community, the gap is almost closed, is really amazing. So I just want to really say thank you. Just two general questions regarding NCPS. So when Mr. DeAndre was talking about the data in terms of the cases as well as quarantine, et cetera, has MCPS been able at all to map to see whether there are particular areas of the county where we're seeing a bit more of these issues? Has there been any type of geographic mapping at all, analysis?
We continually partner with DHHS to monitor where we're seeing increases in cases. And so it's really been on a school by school basis, not so much a geographic area basis, but we are communicating regularly with DHHS, as cases arise to ultimately make decisions if there are additional steps that we need to take in partnership with DHHS. We also will be, as part of the 5-point plan that Dr. McKnight shared at the council briefing 2 weeks ago, we will be releasing, looks like tentatively this Friday, an updated COVID-19 dashboard that will provide more information to community members about cases in individual schools, as well as overall numbers of students in quarantine.
So you haven't yet? We've not yet geomapped the data. We are collecting data about school by school basis, and tracking that. It is part of our challenge with the IT teams is to get them together and to get a reliable and solid collection method in place. The first 2 weeks of this was hand collected data, and then hand collated data. So there's some softness in that data that makes me uncomfortable with relying on it for any kind of major decisions. But as we go forward, we will have data that would allow us to geomap and get a sense of where there may be hotspots evolving in the system.
And Councilmember Navarro, as Dr. Crow indicated earlier, we're looking at the interoperability of the system, synergy system, what we're seeing in our Immunet and other data systems and Chris, as we continue to upload our respective data to look at those hotspots, if you will, and those mapping points. So we are doing that now, and we're having those conversations. We began having those conversations this week, and our IT teams have gotten together this week to look at the display of the data.
Thank you. I feel very strongly that this is really important. I'm glad that you guys are proactively doing this. Obviously, when we started to deal with the pandemic in March of 2020, as we all recall, we collectively had this very strong interest in making sure that we could get the zip code data from the state, because we wanted to very quickly figure out how we could target our approach and our services and everything. And it was so important once we were able to literally advocate to get that data of zip codes, because that then led to many of the initiatives that now we have seen have made a big difference. So I feel like now we have this subset in terms of a large community, which is MCPS. And that would be, in my opinion, one of the first things that we should be looking at and quickly trying to figure out, how to collect that. And so once we do that, I think that, and of course we should be doing that right now, but obviously we have developed an extraordinary infrastructure. So, the question that Councilmember Friedson was asking in terms of language capacity is really key, and engaging with our hubs and our initiatives, et cetera, truly is such a gift, because that way we don't have to start from scratch. So, Ms. Dublinsky, I hope that you guys are, of course, doing that. I know that I've had also conversations with Dr. McKnight about, all of these particular resources that is going to be important. I know, I've heard feedback that for some in our, for example, Latino community, parents, et cetera, it's been a little confusing to figure out this whole piece around testing and if you're going to opt in and all of that. So the more proactive that we can be from the beginning to partner with many of these folks who already have, now I call them the experts on the ground on a very grassroots level. That's just going to be a huge help all around. And no doubt the, promotores concept, which has been really useful, health promoters, not only in the Latino community, but also within our African American health program, et cetera, that type of, model can be extended. So I really want to reiterate that and offer that, because if we don't quickly stand all of this up, we may not sustain what we're trying to sustain, but it is clear, as I think Councilmember Rice said, no doubt with a school system our size, something so unprecedented, to have been able to stand up, coming back to school, having our kids in the classroom, et cetera. Wow, what an amazing and extraordinary effort. And so, yes, kudos to all of you, this team, but also the staff, the administrators, support service personnel, but most importantly, the parents who have had to deal with this anxiety around, sending your children back to school. Not easy, but we can see that the numbers are trending down. And I think, again, if we can stand up and take advantage of that capacity that we have in our community already, I believe that we will be able to ride this well and see the types of gains that we have seen throughout in terms of vaccinations. So anyway, I look forward to next week's briefing. I'm very glad that we are, incorporating MCPS. I think it's so important to do that, and look forward also to information regarding the geomapping as well. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. We're very glad MCPS is here. Mr. DeAndre, you may have said this, but are there plans for saliva tests to be offered for students as an alternative to the nasal swab?
At this time, we do not have any immediate plans for saliva tests. All the tests that we are using for the screening rapid tests are coming from the state supply, but that doesn't preclude being able to do it at some point in the future.
Right. Yeah, I mean, there are certainly folks who think that might be helpful both for symptomatic students and staff to reduce the refusals and also for the test to stay issue.
So, Council President Hucker, just to add, we have deployed the point of care rapid testing, but we also recommend those individuals who may be sent home or who've been identified as a close contact, follow up with a PCR test, a saliva-based test, and we have made them available at our sites again, and we continue to work with MCPS to identify sites or potential pods if needed or upon request. So we have those collaborations in place based on the infrastructure that we built before, and if we see a need to increase that capacity, we have the flexibility to shift and have those pods as needed. But we continue to work to not only keep students in school, but again, those symptomatic students tested as a confirmatory measure and or quarantine.
Right. Okay. So they're in the community health centers now, not in the schools, but they could be deployed if necessary.
Correct.
Okay,
and we've had pods in collaboration with MCPS as we continue to identify, as Councilmember Navarro indicated, those hotspots, those areas where we need to not only test, but in addition to our current strategy.
Thanks. Could you also clarify what MCPS is doing to reduce the number of close contacts in elementary school, whether there's any effort to keep table groups separate in classrooms or any other social distancing? How that's
sure. I'll ask Ms. Dublinsky to go through that. Pretty much crosswalk. What we can also do at Public Health is just go through the step-by-step measure, the outline, the guideline that we've crafted with MCPS to go through to illustrate what MCPS does along those contacts with the school administrators and teachers, identifying those lists of line contacts, as well as sharing those lists with our communicable disease and our school health services team. So we have a plan that we can share with council, but if Ms. Dublinsky can actually walk through that process, that will give greater detail.
Happy to. So we are, working closely with schools to encourage them to find ways to create space and distance between students in hopes that will even further reduce our close contact numbers. Schools are still using outside spaces for lunch and recess, which has been really helpful. Of course, when there are weather days, that brings kids inside, and some of our data last week showed that those indoor recess and lunch periods did increase the number of students in quarantine. But we are working with schools to identify creative indoor spaces to expand lunch so they are able to spread out 6 feet. We work closely with schools to give ideas, whether it's setting up tables and kind of bistro areas throughout large common spaces, maybe the entryway of the school or other large hallways, using more areas than just the classroom and the cafeteria for lunch areas to create that additional distance. We are encouraging schools, especially at the elementary level, to have more engagement at the desks rather than doing close, circle time or on the carpet reading, really encouraging staff to create as much distance as possible, knowing that that's going to reduce the number of students we have in quarantine. As Dr. Bridgers mentioned, we work closely with the school health professionals in creating a process where we are not putting burden on either our principals or our school health staff, and that we're working as teams to gather the information, to make the decisions, and where we're really coming together to support the students in the intent of wanting to keep them in school, but also needing to have anybody that's been a close contact quarantine to reduce any transmission within the school.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Jawando.
Thank you. Just let me add myself to the chorus as the father of a couple of MCPS elementary kids who's going through a quarantine. Thank you for everything that you all are doing. Those numbers are remarkable. All of us heard from parents, obviously, and were concerned. And the fact that we could turn it around with the size of the system and implement some really good strategies all at once, just big kudos, as colleagues have said. And not only from my role as a council member, but my role as a dad. So thank you for the work that you all are doing collectively. I wanted to ask Mr. DeAndrea, this might be to you or your colleagues. We talked about the close contacts. Could you state the current policy for testing out that's happening if you are exposed, if you are a close contact, or whomever's appropriate to state that? It could be Ms. Dublinsky or
I'll okay.
Okay.
I'm happy to. Yeah. I know I've been the one who's been most vocal about this testing to stay protocol that people often talk about, where you can test instead in lieu of being quarantined, you can test to stay in. As been discussed, it's been implemented successfully in Massachusetts and Illinois, although the systems in those states are not nearly the size of MCPS. So obviously it poses a challenge to do. As we alluded to in the beginning, we're concerned about the strain placed on school health already by the rapid testing that's being done. And so in order for us to feel comfortable expanding and considering some of these alternate protocols, and we are interested in doing it, just so we're clear, we're building towards that, is that we want to make sure that we can buttress the existing testing infrastructure in place in the schools, and then potentially, I don't say potentially, because I think we're going to do this. It's a matter of how fast we can do it and when and along what timeline is to allow for test to stay to be implemented. There are some details they're working through. We have a meeting with the Maryland Department of Health tomorrow to talk through the process, further get some descriptions or some feedback from them on how we could set up a protocol. We'll be working with MCPS. We have our normal Tuesday or Thursday meetings this week as well to talk through. And so our hope is that over the coming weeks, we'll be able to do it. I don't want to set a timeline for that because I want to see how fast we can get these staff in and through the background check process and get the elements of testing that we've committed to with MCPS already, the rapid testing and including PCR testing on the back end up and running in place before we know, once we see how those things are going, and then know, okay, if it's 374 on a week, that's much more achievable in terms of implementing a test and stay program. And so I think we're inclined to want to do it, but we want to make sure that we can do it well before we implement it. It will likely roll out as a pilot because we don't want to. We probably won't have the full staffing to go from 0 to 175 schools on day one. But we do think we could focus on schools that have been disproportionately impacted by the learning loss, maybe the ESOL schools that we heard a lot about with the Board of Education, something like that, and then expand it out based on success and increase staffing. So just to give a sense of what we're thinking through.
And also just to add, as part of that protocol that we're developing, we've also had extensive conversations about the human resources and the what we would need to implement that. And we have taken those steps into consideration, Councilmember Jawando, to make sure, again, as all have said, not to overburden our school health services or our resources in support of MCPS. We're looking at adding to that. And so we're working on what that would look like now so that we can, again, pilot this program.
Great. Yeah, and obviously all this is connected. We want kids who were impacted to be in school, but we want everyone to be safe. And so these are all challenging things. Our size make things a challenge. So I think these are all appropriate questions, but I know if you're the parent at home or the caregiver at home, you want to know, okay, how soon is this coming? Just like you want to know when's the 5 to 11 vaccine coming, which we've talked about earlier. Okay, that's very helpful. And then the other question I had was, as far as the opt-in to be testing, the form that we had to sign and send back in, I might have missed this part. How are we doing on that, getting those back? And what's, I don't know if you have percentages or numbers, or is that going well?
Yes, I can answer that. So we have been doing the Say Yes to the Test campaign, focused right now initially on grades pre-K through 6th grade, and have had a significant uptick just in the past week to week and a half. So as of Friday, we have just over 36,000 students whose parents have consented to testing, which is 45% of the targeted group of students in grades pre-K through 6. So I anticipate that number continuing to increase moving forward. But as you may recall from the last briefing, we were, I believe, right around or just under 30% at that point. So we're making progress and hope to accelerate that more in the coming days.
Okay, so that was just in a week. You said 45%. You said how many thousand? What was it? I'm sorry.
It's 36,300.
Just 45% of the K-6 population.
Correct.
Great. All right. Great. That's not obviously what we want to keep tracking, and we'll continue to put it in our newsletters and help that. That's an important component, I know, to make this work appropriately. So
I will add, Councilmember, on the diagnostic testing, I think we've only seen about 3 to 5% of the parents opting out for the diagnostic testing. So, for example, when there's a symptomatic child, call the parent, get consent to run the rapid test. There's sort of a direct request for consent there, and it is reasonably rare, 3 to 5% that they choose not to.
Right. Great. All right. Well, thank you for your work, and look forward to continued updates. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. See any other requests? So I think that's the end for today. Thank you all so much for all your hard work. It's
Mr. President.
Councilmember Reamer. Councilmember Rice, sorry.
Sorry. Just very, very quickly. Just wanted to mention something, and thank you to DHHS for continuing to put this information out there. But if folks do lose their vaccination card, there's a way in which you can go online and actually have that status given. And so that's incredibly important for folks. Folks think that because you won't get another hard card. So can you just, Dr. Bridges, just talk very briefly about that? Because the information sometimes isn't always easy to find, but I have it now on my phone so that IR portal is there.
Sure.
And so for any resident, having that information is important.
Sure. Thank you, Councilmember Rice, for bringing that up. And so, again, as part of our vaccine strategy, we request that individuals bring or show their ID as well as their vaccine cards. If you don't have your vaccine card readily available for some unforeseen reason, you can visit our COVID portal that we have. We have detailed instructions how to access your vaccine report. It's not a card. It is an 8.5 by 11 vaccine representation, but it shows not only the series of vaccine that you received and the dates that you have received it. So if you received the Pfizer, you will see that you received the Pfizer on X date, first dose, Pfizer second dose, and then if in fact you're eligible for a third a booster, that will be recorded as well in the state system. Now, we recognize that early on when the state began to allow access to the MyIR portal, there was some challenges about interoperability or sharing information across jurisdictions. The state of Maryland continues to work through that. So don't get frustrated if you did not get vaccinated in your particular jurisdictions. I would suggest that you go to those other jurisdictions, those portals, because it's the same information, but a different access point to print out your immunization record, MyIR. And so we have that information available. We have detailed instructions. By all means, if you're having problems, please contact 240-777-2982, and our clinical staff here at Dennis Avenue will be able to provide additional technical assistance and or support. And lastly, if all else fails and you aren't able to bring your vaccine card with you, but you know you've been fully vaccinated, our staff at our community level sites will take the time to look into the system. But please be patient, because keep in mind that that's another step that they're taking to ensure that you are fully vaccinated, that you receive the correct series, and that there aren't any challenges further on down the line. So thank you for bringing that up, Councilmember Rice. That's pretty much the crosswalk.
Thank you very much. And then just lastly, when it comes to senior vaccinations for flu, many doctors' offices across the county have not had the actual senior flu vaccine. Is that something that's going to be provided by DHHS shortly? Do you already have it? What's the progress on that front?
So we haven't gotten any additional flu vaccines for seniors yet. We're waiting for additional information from the Maryland Department of Health. And once we receive that high dose for seniors, we will have those available at our community level sites. But as we receive them, the community level sites, as well as pharmacies and other urgent care and other places that would typically administer vaccines, should have that high dose available. But as we continue to see it, we will continue to post and publish that information that high dose is available.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. All right. Well, thank you all for all your great work. We're really happy to hear all the good news and look forward to staying in close touch.
Thank you.
Thanks so much. Now, colleagues, we can sit for District Council. Today, first, we have an introduction of Zoning Text Amendment 2106, Exemptions, Density Transfer, and Historic Resources. A public hearing is scheduled for November 2nd, 21 at 1:30 p.m. Council Chair Reamer or Ms. Ndu, feel free to jump in.
I'll kick us off. This is an introduction. It's essentially fixing something that was inadvertently changed during the zoning rewrite years ago. And hopefully we've got a recommendation from the planning board. So hopefully it'll be quick and smooth, and we can move it along and let this redevelopment happen, supporting a historic structure of great significance for the county. So thanks.
Great. All right. Thank you. Without further ado, that bill is introduced. Next, we have action on Executive Regulation 1220, which is the adoption of the 2018 International Green Construction Code. The Fed Committee recommends approval. I'm very grateful to Chair Reamer and the whole Fed Committee for moving this forward. I know all our residents know that we've been very busy with the pandemic and the recession, but we want everyone to know that we're very focused on the climate as well. We received this bill not that long ago. I'm glad we could pass it out very quickly. Chair Reamer.
Thank you. This is the Green Building Code is something we've been working on for years. There's not much of great controversy this year in this update. We worked out some difficult issues a couple of years ago, and this update largely reflects a continuation of our path, which has earned support from really a wide array of stakeholders. So we have some very knowledgeable staff, at DPS who know the ins and outs of the code. But bottom line, we will hopefully enact this today, and they can begin to put it into use. And I think the building industry generally, is able to see that we are steadily marching forward with the Green Building Code. And as that code is updated, we will continue updating ours. So it's an important policy. Generally speaking, code updates like this take a really long time to work their way through the entire building stock, because they take effect as a building is either built or renovated. So it's not a quick solution, but it's a really important one, and it will strengthen our climate policy over time. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay. I don't see any requests to speak. Madam Clerk, can you call the roll?
This is a hand up, Mr. President.
Oh, I'm sorry. All those in favor of the Fed Committee's recommendation to approve the 2018 Green Building Code, please raise your hand. Terrific. That is unanimous. Thanks. Next, we can move ahead on Subdivision Regulation Amendment 2002, Subdivision Ordinance Revisions, Clarifications, and Corrections. The Fed Committee recommends approval with amendments. Okay. Chairman Reamer, any comments?
I think we touched on this last week. Thank you for walking us through the highlights last week. I think we're ready to vote.
Madam Clerk, can you call the roll?
Mr. Glass?
Yes.
Mr. Glass votes yes. Mr. Duando?
Yes.
Mr. Duando votes yes. Mr. Reamer?
Yes.
Mr. Reamer votes yes. Ms. Navarro?
Yes.
Ms. Navarro votes yes. Mr. Rice?
Yes.
Mr. Rice votes yes. Mr. Friedson?
Yes.
Mr. Friedson votes yes. Mr. Katz?
Yes.
Mr. Katz votes yes. Mr. Albernos?
Yes.
Mr. Albernos votes yes. Mr. Hucker?
Yes.
Mr. Hucker votes yes.
That SRA passes. Great. Next, we can take action on an appointment to the Board of Appeals. Madam Clerk, do you have any comments?
This is a...
No, Mr. President, I do not.
Okay. Well, we have a recommendation to reappoint Ms. Hines. Ms. Hines, if you're listening, thanks so much for the great job you've done, and congratulations on your recommendation. I'm very grateful that you're willing to continue to serve. Is there a motion to approve Ms. Hines for the Board of Appeals?
So moved.
Councilmember Katz moves. Councilmember Navarro seconds. Great. All those in favor, please raise your hand. That is unanimous. Terrific. Congratulations, Ms. Hines, and thank you. Next is the consent calendar. Is there a motion to approve the consent calendar?
So moved.
Second.
Councilmember Navarro moves. Councilmember Rice seconds. All those in favor, please raise your hand. That is unanimous. Terrific. Thanks. Next is our appointee for Assistant Chief Administrative Officer, Mr. Stoddard. Dr. Stoddard? I don't know if he's with us or there's any need for comments. Is there a motion to approve the appointment?
So moved.
Councilmember Katz moves.
Second.
Councilmember Navarro seconds. All those in favor, please raise your hands. Great, that is unanimous. Dr. Stoddard is confirmed. And so now we can take our recess till 1:30. Thanks, colleagues. Well done.
Reaching out to more communities than we haven't been able to reach